should be able to hear us.
Kev says yay.
Kev says yay. So I assume, yes, that is the ability to hear us. So now all I need to do is switch it over to our screen. Boom. I think everything should be through.
We're live, we're streaming.
We're live, we're streaming, we're picking
Exciting.
Cards. Yes.
Yeah.
So, everybody, welcome. This is the Dev Draft we have been talking about for so long, and we have a very special guest with us today. If you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at the Fun Factory?
Yes, totally. So I'm Ben Stahl. My technical job title is Director of Game Theory, and my role on Hex is I'm the head designer. So kind of historically, I had a lot to do with the first couple of PvP sets, and these days I kind of more am in an overseer position of the team, and I've also been, after the first couple PvP sets, I really transitioned most of my efforts onto PvE. So, along with a lot of, mostly our whole team has been heavily focusing there. So, so yeah, that's kind of what I do. I mean, I do a lot of stuff. I work with the other departments. I work on the game itself. I try to do my best to manage and oversee the team, and yeah.
A lot of hats.
Yep.
Very cool. As far as today is concerned, we've got a lot of questions. I hope to have just as much as possible a mix of questions that I personally am interested in, I'm sure the community is interested in, and just conversation, having fun.
Sweet. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, as far as the questions are concerned, if there's ever a question that you feel you can't answer or you think would be better answered by somebody else, please don't hesitate to let me know. I did my best guess arranging questions between members of the team, but feel free to pawn it off
Okay,
if
cool,
you ever
thanks.
need to.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I guess I kind of have to start off with this one. This is from your opponent on the forums, and he wanted me to ask, how did the dinosaurs survive Hex on Enterath? My dinosaur brethren want to know.
Oh, yes. As a comet crashed through the planet, and
Exactly.
usually dinosaurs have a hard time with that sort of thing, right? The dinosaurs on Hex are extra resilient, and you notice that there's some mysterious stuff there. Like if you notice that Tyrannosaurus Hex actually has a little bit of armor on his body, and you don't realize it, but that armor is actually specially crafted to survive comets as well as other intense magical things.
Oh, star metal.
There's lots of secret dinosaur survival stuff in the lore that we haven't quite gotten to yet, but yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
Sweet.
Here's another one. How has Hex being a digital card game affected or changed how you think about keywords? Because, your role has changed a little bit, but you've still done a lot of designing for the game. And
Yep.
I feel like there's everything from tooltips to the digital design space and how much larger that is in some ways than a normal paper space would be.
Yeah. Absolutely. First of all, it's super exciting. I used to work on paper TCGs, and that was always a joy. But the digital space it's fun, it's inspiring, and as you kind of hinted towards, it also comes with some other challenges. Like there's other things to keep in mind being a video game. But I think there's several things we try to think about. One is we think about what is something that's cool and new that we can do in a digital TCG that can't be done in a physical TCG, which I think is a fun way to approach it, because digital TCGs are still kind of this relatively new thing, and so people that are coming from a paper TCG background get a little bit of extra delight when they go, oh my god, that's so cool, I've never had that experience in a TCG. It might be a twist on sort of design space that I'm used to, but I've never actually been able to pick my card before the time runs out. I've never been able to do something like that. And but we also there's other stuff we think of too. Like we try to think of like what could create a cool little visual moment. So part of say tunneling or eggs was when we initially had the inception for those kind of keywords, we I go, the team or whoever will go, the lead designer on the set will go to say Tyler, who's our head visual guy, and we'll say, hey, this is what we're thinking. We're thinking about like spiders and putting eggs in your opponent's deck and they hatch, and then he'll go, okay, cool. Well, what do you think about this? And then he'll pitch out an idea for a cool visual representation of that. And so that part of it is very fun too. Or like the tunneling guys with a little mound of dirt on top of them and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a combination of what is fun and digital, and of course what's just good gameplay by any standard, and then it's also what can we do that makes it extra digital in a visually compelling way. So I guess those are probably the main factors.
Nice. Yeah, I have to say, as a player, I do get a thrill out of particularly the spider fall. You get a big patch of spiders and just spewing out of the deck, and it's it's a ton of fun.
Me too. Yeah, I love that animation. Yeah, for sure.
Well, since we're on the topic of spiders, this is a bit of a bigger question, but how do you see the role of RNG in Hex?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I want to give it a good answer. So, of course, like being a trading card game, right? We don't want Hex to be chess, and it can't be chess. There's like this. Really, it's really key to get the blend and the recipe right between, say, RNG, the impact that your strategy has over the game, as well as I know this is not really part of the question, but a third big pillar that I like to rope into these sorts of paradigms is the creative ownership. And so, in all three of those things, kind of harmonize. There's ways that you can have RNG in a way that feels more totally random, and there's ways you can have RNG in a way that lets you feel like you had a little bit of control over it, or that you had a little bit of kind of creative ownership over it. RNG, of course, in our, we love our players because they're into the same stuff that we've always been into. And so RNG is one of those ingredients that we have to get just right, because if we over season or under season, it's going to mess up the whole mixture. So RNG is the kind of thing we actually spend a great deal of time talking about in R&D, and we ask like, is this the good kind of RNG? Is it too much? Is it too little? Or what are the players going to think? But I think that there's certainly room for. Of course, one of the other things about Hex is we have all these different shards and different cards, and we want to make sure that there's kind of something for everybody. That's part of the fun. If you want to play this straightforward, I just want to be straightforward, gain health, play giant troops, and it might not be the most difficult to execute strategy, but I love it and it feels fun and yada yada. And somebody else, might say, I want there to be very little RNG in my strategy, and I want to have lots of control over what I'm doing. So we try to, first of all, always offer a range of experiences to access. We wouldn't want to force like one specific type of thing onto a whole part of a format to force people to deal with it. But there's lots of other nuanced stuff I could go into. I was just going to make another great little tidbit point. RNG.
Well, how's this?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say this might help. You mentioned good RNG versus bad RNG. What makes for good RNG?
So I think that good RNG is RNG that's not like you don't want the impact to be so game breaking. You don't want it to happen so early. Like the thing that I like about spiders is like. Yes, we've all had the moment of like, my opponent, flipped a spider into play immediately. But you're often, there's ways you can fight against the spider, and you're not necessarily dead any more than you would be dead just because your opponent also played the best 2-drop in the draft format on turn 2. You know what I mean? So like, I think that if I think that if RNG happens too quickly and it's too powerful, and it has too much impact on the game, and then in a lot of ways, perhaps most importantly, there's no way to fight against it. Those are some of the red flags of bad RNG. Like when there's RNG, but the result is like it's like take a card like Minotaur Mercenary from way back from set 1. He's very RNG based, and when you lose the coin flip, it's really bad, and when you win the coin flip, you got a way overstated guy. But the overall power level of the card is shot somewhat low on purpose, because I wouldn't want that guy showing up in tier 1 because that's going to be injecting a very RNG feeling card, into the competitive scene in a way in which would turn off a lot of the competitive players. And we also keep it so that it's like, even as a 2-cost 4/3, yes, that's very powerful on turn 2, but it's still interactable. You're not stuck by it. Whereas if we had an RNG card that was like, flip a coin, deal 10 damage to the opponent or 10 damage to yourself, that's going to be much more irritating because there's nothing you can do after you lose the coin flip. Whereas, say with spiders, we can stay, well, here's your Arrow Storm. So, or is that what that card's called these days? No.
Volley of...
Sorry, playtest names. Staggering Blast.
Staggering Blast? Oh, okay.
That's actually not the card I was referring to, but that's another card that helps you. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and I'm sorry, my answer's a little rambly here, but...
no, this is fine. This is good.
Okay, cool. RNG is something, though, that we talk to death because we know it's important and we know it really miffs people if we get the precise measurement of the ingredients off. So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so I guess going on with spiders, I don't mind RNG when it's used to sort of a greater purpose, just as a player. And I've talked about this before on stream, but when mechanics meet theme, that's really, really, really satisfying for me.
Absolutely.
I love the idea and the feeling of slowly infesting an opponent's deck. And it's really kind of a special moment in Hex for me, just to see all of those pop out and stuff. Argus is the same way. It feels like a gigantic Doom machine, and it's the Death Star is slowly approaching, and you better do something about it.
Cool, man. Yeah, absolutely. Those are many of my favorite designs as well, where I feel like we do a good job with that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've noticed that there's always a collection of champions that are more marginal or less popular within the community. Is this intentional? Are champions designed to all have the same power level, or are some expected to have more specific uses than others?
So they're not. Yeah, champions are. I wouldn't say they're all intended to have the same power level. I mean, like, there's certain principles that we apply to our power level pointing with cards that say also apply to our power level pointing with champions. So, for example, like a negative play experience, like a champion that is going to, in general, be less fun for players to play against, we might do our best to target that guy at a slightly lower power level. Not because we never want to have that kind of experience in Hex, but all things being considered, a champion that's fun to play against and fun to play with is a little safer for us to put at a higher power level than a champion that is, not fun to play against. But that said, in general, we have a lot of very deliberate reasons why we create a power level spread on cards. And in general, I prefer, we attempt to shoot towards champions being on much more even footing. Because, that is one of the fun things that we want to keep growing, and we want that choice to always be compelling. It's like any one of these champions can shine in the right deck under the right circumstances, and I think that every champion getting to shine under some circumstances is, for the most part, the net optimal place for the game to be. So
cool. Yeah. So like there's some champions that I'm always a big proponent of trying to get people to try different champions, and I guess part of my question is, do you sometimes put in champions with the idea that they're maybe not going to be that powerful right now, but they'll rise in power later down the line? Because I've seen some of that.
We do. Yeah, we do. And it's a fun thing because we actually even do that with cards sometimes as well. But yeah, sometimes it happens incidentally, and sometimes we kind of plan it a little bit more. Yeah, I think that is one of the fun things is like, I'm looking at One Eye Open, and I'm not sure I can quite make him work out yet, but every set that comes out, there's some new cards to look at, and maybe I'm going to think about him some more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I do think that exploration and the evolving context is absolutely part of champion design and evolution, so yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool.
Is there any example that you can give us of cards in which you, like, specifically designed for that purpose? because you were saying that sometimes it happens incidentally, sometimes it happens a little more purposefully. Is there one that you can, like an example
Sure.
you can give?
Yeah, I can give a couple. So I'll mention in a general sense, for example, or in a more broad sense, we've done that with some of the race stuff. One of the reasons why we couldn't say right when set 1 came out, we couldn't have the race centric decks be totally tier 1 dominant power level is because we know that, hey, we've got several more sets worth of race cards to bring out there, and so if we hit the ceiling right away, then we're going to go through the ceiling by the time set 4 comes out or whatever. So we have with each new set, there's some new deck archetype that's created and it's brand new, and that we can kind of just eyeball its power level there. But we also have these deck archetypes that are kind of simmering, and we need to manage exactly when they're going to come to a boil and make sure that they don't boil too soon. A more specific example I could mention is a card like Archmage Renlock. He's a card that we've known there's some cool stuff that we want to do with actions in future sets, for example. And I remember we even talked about some of that pre-planning right when we were crafting that design. That's just the first thing that popped into my head. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so the power level of cards is always something that I'm really interested in because that's a big thing for me with the whole style points articles and stuff. It's cards aren't good or bad; they are useful within a very specific context, and
right.
Over time that context is going to evolve and change, and you're going to see a very different experience in with just set 1 than when you have set 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's actually kind of exciting because from a deck building standpoint, and I too I love the brewing and I love what crazy stuff can we cook up, and with every card's capacity being so interlocked with every other card's capacity, you actually have kind of a little bit of an exponentially scaling thing with every set that comes out until the point at which rotation occurs. But
right.
But we're not rotating anything out with set 4, and so when set 4 comes out, it's even kind of an exponential add, just because all the other cards are getting more and more of a total context. And so yeah, it's exciting. I think that you'll see more and more avenues to go down the more sets that come out. So
nice. So RCD V57, I'm just going to call him I am Drar from the forums. Wanted me to ask everybody on the team if they are a Johnny, Timmy, or a Spike. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, Johnny, these are psychological profiles of players. Johnny is win with style, Timmy is win big, and Spike is just win. So what are you?
So yeah, I'll tell you. I don't need to go way into a bunch of necessary clarifying, but we have our own slight twist on how we kind of have broad psychological profiles.
Oh, please tell me. I want to know.
well, what it would mean is I'd have to go on rants about those 3 broad categories that you mentioned and kind of granulate them a little bit more, which I could do at some point. But I'll give you a quick answer to your question first before I forget it.
Sure.
As a player, I've always been kind of from moment 1 with TCGs. I've always been to use those terms, a Johnny Spike. I've always been into the creative deck building and the satisfaction that comes with, as you said, winning with style and cooking up a strategy, and maybe it's a strategy that not everybody else is playing, and I put my own spin on it and all that stuff. But I've also, the primary thing that compels me when I'm playing the game is still winning. So I want to win in a fun way, but I'm always motivated by, it's like I see a game as I have an objective. My objective is, what is it? It's reduce the opponent's health total to 0. And so all of my decisions during the draft and everything else are still always kind of ultimately motivated by that. But I'm always going to try my darndest to still do it with style. And so, yeah. And as a designer, I'm probably more, by default as a designer, I'm probably more in the kind of the Johnny style camp. And many of the kind of big people behind Hex on the Hex team are also that way, and I think it kind of shows through a little bit in the design and just the nature of the product, and even I think it shows through in the thematics. But one of the things I try to do and is is I try to fall in love with all the aspects of everything. I mean, I think that makes me better at my job, and I do really have some affinity for all that stuff. I love giant troops. I love really control-y, competitive-y, variance subverting effects. I do love that stuff too, and I love the style points, and I try to fall in love with it all, because if I can personally get myself to connect to the emotional and psychological experiences behind each of those profiles and the cards that conjure up a sense of those profiles, then of course I can do better at my job. I don't have to guess at what that type of player might want, because I can actually figure out what that player wants, because I can find a way to want it myself. So
yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah, but we have I mean, it's a great question for the rest of the team. We have hopefully I guess your plan would be to ask them individually, so they can give you their own answers. But I think one of the things that's awesome about our team is, in addition to everybody kind of having their own unique skill sets, everybody on our team is the best guy at something. But also just in a general design sense, and as players, we run the gamut from people that just want big splashy crazy effect, or big splashy over the top stuff, people that are very, very competitive, and so we all get to add our unique profile to the design as well, in a way that's very creates kind of a fun tapestry. So
yeah, that's fantastic. So, but now that you let it slip, I have to know, what's wrong with these profiles?
Oh, nothing is wrong with them. I think your descriptions are spot on. It's more that I try to, we spent, it's a kind of thing that we spend a lot of time talking about, and so I try to really granulate what they mean, just is more deeply as I can. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Of a nuance that I think is a part of one of those profiles. Like one of the things I like to consider, I kind of talked about a little bit, is what is it that, it's not just what you enjoy, it's like, what's the primary relationship you have with the game? So like, one of the things that you'll hear, Johnny or Style Points guys say sometimes, is they'll actually literally say, I don't even care if I win the game, I just want to see my creation go off. And that's a really interesting thing, because, like I said, for me, I want to win the game and I want to see my creation go off. So I think that, there's room for overlap, and everybody's a little more complex than just one of those three profiles. But pure Style Points guy, he actually just wants to see his nonsense occur, and then he doesn't even care. It's like, you killed me with your Vampire King. That's great, good for you.
Whatever.
That's fine. I don't care, because I'm just having a good time over here. And,
exactly. That's me.
So yeah, sweet. So I mean, I think that's really interesting, and the Timmy profile, he engages with the game in kind of he's engaging on a different level. It's a very pure, simple, it's nice, there's no nonsense to it level. He's just like 10-10, that's what I'm about. But like, he doesn't need to necessarily feel the same amount of kind of creative ownership over it, like I'm the mad scientist, that the Style Points guy does, I think. But he is going to be just as delighted, if in a slightly different way, just to see his 10-10 hit the board, or take a million turn, whatever it is that he does that's over the top and all that stuff, attack with 30 1/1s. And it's fun, because we try to find places, design intersection, where we can hit not just those three profiles, but the intersections, like I was saying. So like, I really like archetypes, for example, that are like health gain plus some weird kooky benefits to it. Casual Timmy type guy loves health gain. It's simple, it's no nonsense. Of course I want to gain health. Like, why are you trying to make it more complicated than that? Who doesn't want to gain health? But then if you pair that with like some cute, cool stuff that happens when you gain health, you can kind of hit that person who's very specifically both, say, Timmy and Johnny. And so, I don't know. I'm just rambling, but
no. This is really cool. And I think, for me anyway, there are other purposes of the game. And one thing is just what you want out of the actual act of playing the game, and then there are other places you can interface with. Like, I have the squirrel brain, and I have it really hard. I'll look at this draft, and I'm doing my darndest to win, and I'll still be like, ooh, it has blue in the corner over there. I must have it. Like, part of my brain, it does that, and it's very difficult to not take all the shinies. So from the collecting to the sort of social interfaces, the MMO part of Hex, right, is that social aspect, gathering with friends, people who you want to see again and again, and then just sort of the deep strategy. How do I take every little bit of design space out of these cards and, as a player, utilize this?
Yep.
So, very cool. Well, thank you so much for that in-depth answer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Matt with a T from the forums wanted to know which cards do you think are currently underrated and why?
Interesting. So, let's see. I feel like I have to give kind of a somewhat lame answer to this one. I mean,
Yeah.
we have this, we have this thing, we really like the idea that the game is untainted by our opinions. I mean, as far as stuff goes, like power level. Oh Jesus, trumpet blast in my ear. So we don't like to comment too much on stuff like that because, some of the cards that I personally think are most underrated. I don't want to take away that moment where someone shows up at the 100K
discovers
and you know what I mean, and is like, hey, look what I did. I was the guy who realized this was underrated. So there are. I'll give I'll answer a slightly different question. Sorry, but it's a little bit related. I think there are a lot of cards that are, say, they're at tier 1.5 power level, and so they're just not quite good enough to actually, to for a truly competitive player or whatever, they might be perceived as just not quite good enough to get there. But there's a lot of cards that are right at that cusp. And then what I think has already happened with some of those cards is new sets have come out, context has changed, the metagame has shifted, and people have forgotten that they've already done their power level assessment of some old card. They've been like, okay, card X, I've seen it, I maybe tried it, I thought about it in the context of the metagame, it didn't quite get there, and I'm putting it on the shelf. And then it's sort of that thing that we were talking about earlier with the changing context of new sets. I think what's already happened and what will continue to happen is a new set will come out, and some of those cards that are just under the cusp, but they don't get a lot of press time because they don't actually quite make it into decks. Some of those cards actually become good enough, and then, and I mean, the amazing thing about underrated cards is they show up and people aren't ready for them. Everybody's ready for Crocosaur or whatever, but
right.
If you're the guy who finds that underrated card, that's such a special moment. But yeah, sorry, I don't want to go into too many details about my personal theories on it, but we do talk about it at the office. Multiple R&D guys have, and we don't always agree, but everybody has their own thoughts on, hey, I really think this card's good, and the community hasn't quite picked up on it yet. So it is a thing we talk about, yeah.
Very cool. Well, I guess sort of paired with that, have there been player strategies that have surprised you, either Shard of Troop combinations that were effective in ways you didn't initially plan for, and do you have examples?
Let's see. I think that most of the very most popular strategies that we've seen, we anticipated to some extent. When I think about, say the biggest decks over the lifespan of the game and the current state of the game, I don't think we were too surprised by too much. Although, I mean, of course, we've measured it slightly wrong in places. There's been stuff that people built slightly differently, or that was a little better than we thought it would be, or a little worse than we thought it would be. I'm trying to think what's the most surprising thing. What's a surprising deck that the community's cooked up that we didn't anticipate? Somebody tell me. What's it? I was thinking that. I almost said that. Yeah, Azure Cannon is one that
Azure Cannon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if any of us had that specifically on our radar. So, yeah, that's a good one. That's funny. Yeah, Ryan said that, lead designer on set 4, and that's what I was thinking but didn't quite say. But, yeah, so there you go. That's one.
Very cool. How about in limited? Because I understand that constructed versus limited are very different kinds of environments. You tune limited in a way that's much more cohesive. You have a lot more control in some senses over what happens in limited than you do in constructed, because it's everything, right? And they're sort of competing design goals. Anything you can think of there?
Let's see. Man, I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, I personally have spent more time when I've been really in the trenches on sets, honing the draft portion, say, than the constructed. Other people tend to be more in the trenches with the constructed testing than I am. And most of the limited archetypes that have come together, I think we're kind of embedded there. I'm not sure I've seen any crazy surprise strategy, but you might ask that question to somebody else too later on, because maybe someone else has a different answer for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a question we've got repeatable on.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's a little harder for me to know too, because I see constructed deck lists from all sources constantly, and I don't see draft deck lists in the same way, so it might also be harder for me to know. But
yeah. Fair enough. I guess sort of as a follow-up then, can you comment on the differences from a design perspective when you're designing for limited versus constructed? Like, what kinds of things do you have to keep in mind? And I guess in general, what do you think makes it for a good limited environment versus a good constructed environment?
Okay, God, that's such a good question. These are great questions, by the way. So good job, everybody who's yeah, absolutely. Let's see. There's a lot of similar principles, but they kind of play out differently. I mean, for example, both constructed and limited in a TCG such as Hex need to employ some amount of synergy of your cards being greater than the total sum of their parts because they work together. But the way that we implement that for the two different formats is slightly different because, constructed, the idea is okay, I'm going to spread out my resources on the table. I'm in my laboratory, and I can just craft whatever I want, which is kind of a very different experience than when you're doing a draft. And draft, which, of course, high rarity cards are important for draft too, but commons and uncommons tend to be even more important in draft, and rares and legendaries tend to be even more important in constructed relative to the other format. And so, for example, when I'm trying to create building blocks of synergy in draft, I'm trying to think of how does that moment come together? You can't just access whatever you want. So you have this experience of okay, cool, I drafted what was my first card I picked? I first picked a Pain Breeder. And so if I was in constructed, I could go and just take whatever spider guys and put them in my deck. In draft, I've got this tension and this excitement of hoping now that I'm going to get to flesh out my spider strategy. And so we're doing stuff like crafting the quantities of cards that support a given archetype very carefully in that sense for common and uncommon for draft to make sure that the right amount of tension. If you just get a busted spider card in every deck, then we're missing part of what's fun about synergy specifically for draft, which is the excitement of not knowing if you're gonna get the A+ synergy or the par for the course synergy or the slightly under par synergy for your deck. So that would be a consideration. Draft is inherently, of course it's extremely skill testing, but there's also a little bit of that uncertainty, and so we craft cards differently in that sense. What else? We try to make sure that draft and constructed have different cadences, and there's different things that have different levels of effectiveness in both formats, because part of the fun is that not every card's going to see play in constructed. How could it? There's too many cards.
Right.
But so for the cards that we don't think are going to see play in constructed, we want them to see play in draft. Or sealed, right? I mean, there's all these different formats, and cards will shine differently in different formats. So, I mean, one of the things that we always do is we consider what does this card mean for this format, and what does it mean for that format, and should it be primarily crafted for both formats or for one or the other? I'm trying to think. Limited is also a thing where we have 8 people that are sharing this pool of cards at a table. I mean, that's of course a big consideration too. So we got to make sure that the cards that those people are all passing around kind of work as a set that everybody's pulling from. Whereas again, constructed, everybody's just got their own endless pool of cards. Theoretically, if you have an endless pool of cards or whatever pool you have.
Right.
But some of us do, some of us don't.
Yeah. So that's a few things. Yeah, I feel like there's probably gobs of great stuff I could say there that is just not coming to me right now, but that's a couple things. Yeah.
No, this is great. I guess following up with this idea of synergy, because this is a concept that I have batted around as a player quite a bit. I classify. You're probably familiar with the whole BREAD acronym. Bombs,
yes,
removal, blah 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 blah.
Yep.
And when you're talking about powerful cards, particularly in Hex, I think more so than in other TCGs and other games that I've played, synergy is a really big thing. I've noticed that you guys really like synergy within your design. And so I have this concept of normal bombs versus what I like to call sticky bombs. Bombs that are useful, but only in context. So if you take them early on in the draft, what you're doing is betting on the contents later on, versus if you take a card that, a bomb that isn't sticky, what you're doing is saying, oh, this is generically good. If I don't get other stuff, I'll still be okay. And so you want to pick up sticky bombs more often later in the draft if you can swing it that way and send the right signals, because that way you're not, left without the buck to pass to anybody because they've taken all the necessary cards to make the synergy really explode.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess that's a lead up to the question I want to ask, which is how do you guys design for synergy? How do you balance between the cards that are just powerful in and of themselves and or synergistic? Can you comment on the balance between? Because obviously,
absolutely,
a set should have both.
Yes. Again, another great question. So, we want both things to be the case, and I like there to be a range, even just like at an archetype level. I like there to be a range of decks on the spectrum between, say, a deck that's kind of the bread acronym, where it's just kind of good stuff, and it's not the most cohesive, synergistic creation, but it just kind of works because it's all kind of good stuff and it's a little more hedged. I like there to be a range between that strategy and the more like very specific archetype strategy, and ultimately I want the ceiling for the deep archetype strategy to be higher in terms of its potential for a raw power level, because as you kind of alluded to, it's more of a gamble, right? Because you can take this card that's just kind of always going to be good. I got the Shadowblade Assassin here. He's kind of going to be pretty decent no matter what, as opposed to my guys that are saying like, hey, if you don't have enough spider stuff, I'm just kind of not really doing much good. And so I like there to be both because, again, it's more flavors in the rainbow, which is just kind of better overall. But it also lets people navigate towards what they want to get more often. It lets people choose their own strategy a little more, what appeals to them more. But we talk about it a lot in development. Like in general, there are cases where I want to deliberately make exceptions to this rule. But in general, a card that asks you to say jump through a hoop is a term we use. That's conditional in some way, that asks you to do something for it to work. I kind of, if you imagine there's par, and par is like 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Then what I want is a card that's, say, 2 out of 5 if you don't put the puzzle pieces together, to then jump up to 4 out of 5 if you do put the puzzle pieces together, because you should be paid off because you had to jump through a hoop. Now there's exceptions to this, of course. There's, I still want you to be able to just draft a rare that's just 5 out of 5.
Right.
Maybe just because we want there to be, sometimes you just get the Yahtzee, a powerful rare, and that's something we want too. But yes, there is a very important and delicate balance between stuff that just kind of works and stuff that is more synergistic, and there's a whole spectrum range there. So that's all stuff that's on our mind all the time. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I guess along with this, there is this idea of emergent design within design circles, which probably you know better than I am. I'm mostly a dabbler. I read and listen to podcasts and things, but the idea that you can have things that are greater than the sum of their parts. Do you guys actively try? Do you view the project of designing a TCG to be one of emergent design, or do you see it as being very crafted? Do you feel like you want to know always ahead of time what players are going to do? Or do you want the pieces to sort of speak to themselves within a certain power range?
Excuse me, that's a great question. So I think that, especially with a TCG, right, like trying to work on a TCG is like trying to ride like a bucking bronco. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. It's so volatile. There's so many of you guys and so few of us, and we're never going to be able to perfectly predict how everything plays out, what people like, what people are drawn to, what people discover that we thought they would discover, and of course, as we said earlier, people are going to discover stuff that we don't. So given that, that's kind of inevitable, we really do our best to craft every last detail. I mean, we also don't have time to, when we're playtesting cards in a set, we have to say, these are the cards we have to playtest the crap out of, and this goofy card over here, we're just going to eyeball it, and maybe we're only going to get a couple of games in with it because we know it's going to be safe, and we just don't have time to test every last possible concoction of cards you could put together. So, because I think the emergent aspects are going to be kind of inevitable no matter what, no matter what we do, we kind of shoot for the goal of crafting every possible detail and foreseeing everything, knowing that we're never quite going to get 100% anyways, so we end up at, whatever percentage is still a pretty good happy medium.
As safe as
so
you
I do
can.
think a little bit of that emergent aspect is good. Yeah.
Cool.
But you guys want to try as much as you possibly can to not be surprised by something that shows up.
Right. And I guess to clarify what I was saying, like, I don't think that us 100% predicting everything would even necessarily be optimal. Oh, okay. I gotta go because my the thing's about to start. So, yeah, I guess that's it for me. And you guys are great. I love you, and thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This is fantastic.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get somebody else on in just 1 second. Hey, everybody. By the way, if I haven't had a chance to welcome you, I'm going to be trying to do all sorts of things all at once, so if I'm not as interactive with the stream as I normally am, I do deeply apologize.
Yeah, that's unfortunately my job this time around. I get to deal with everybody.
So we're probably going to get somebody else on in just a second. I'm assuming. We've got a bunch of different Hex developers that are going to be joining us with us today. As far as the people who are in the draft with us, you can go ahead and take a look at the forum post I put up a while back. If I can find it, where are you? Yes, here we go. Some of these names might change depending on their schedule and what kind of how busy they are. So let's add Ryan to our call. It's going to take me just 1 moment, guys, to set up the name and guest and stuff. So my apologies for that. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Ryan. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. How are you guys doing today?
Not too shabby.
Great.
Give me a moment to set you up so that you're all nice and pretty on stream.
Oh, great.
Should be mostly good, yeah? Okay. There we are.
Hello.
All right.
All right, well, let's play.
Absolutely. So I need to change your nameplate. You are not Ben Stoll.
I aspire.
So actually, while I'm doing this, because it's all a bunch of fiddly little text documents and the like. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do at Willy Wonka's factory?
Okay, I'm Ryan Sutherland. I'm one of the content designers here at Hex. I am the lead content designer for Set 4, and I've also worked on quite a bit of the PvE stuff that's coming up. And yeah, the gist of my job is making stuff that's fun to play with, including
Awesome.
cards, dungeons, decks that you play against in dungeons, all that stuff.
Very cool. This nameplate does not want to. It's apparently lead content designer for Set 4 is too long, so your title is going to be Set 4 Stuffer.
Sure, stuff. It's what I do best.
Okay. So I guess why don't we lead in with a nice, easy one from I am Drar on the forums. We were asking everybody if they are Johnny,
love
Lead with
his
Style,
drawings.
Timmy, or Spike. Yes, his drawings are fantastic.
Yeah. I think I most identify with like the Timmy aspect, I guess, but not so much as like I was listening to Ben talk about the different psychotropes, and it's not so much the 10/10s for me. It's about just experiencing things. That's what's most important to me, and so like a lot of times it'll be like, hey, they put this goofy card in, and I'm going to make a deck with it, and I don't feel super Johnny about it because I'm not trying to find an interesting interaction. I just want to see the way that games designed want me to play the cards, and enjoy finding new stuff that way.
You know, there's all sorts of interesting. I'm a terrible person. There was a academic who did a whole bunch of research on this back in like Mud days, looking at MMO archetypes, and what that sounds to me like is you're an explorer. You know, when you go out into like an MMO,
I think that's
wander around.
That's actually way more accurate of like the way I like to experience our games.
Yeah, just kind of see what there is to offer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Whenever I'm designing, I obviously you have to try to take the point of view of all sorts of different people. So you got to make goofy cards, you got to make really big monsters, you got to make all the different things that people want to play with. But I want to make it so every card has its own story. And so if you want to experience that story, you put this card in there and you can play with it, and you're like, okay, I understand what this is kind of trying to do.
Very cool. This is a question that I think is probably safe to ask now that the whole drafting process has been done, and we are now battling it out. What's your favorite Set 3 archetype to draft?
Easily, my favorite Set 3 archetype is the Winter Moon deck. And basically, I try to do as little as possible when I'm playing Winter Moon. My whole job when I'm playing Winter Moon is just play 2 or 3 troops in my deck and see if I can win that way. It's not the most compelling gameplay, but it's something completely different than I've never really played in any other game before.
Yeah, no. Winter Moon is such an interesting card for me, or I guess champion, because of the way it has this increasing improvement on the deck. It's something that is really, I think, unique to Hex, the ability to, with time, make not your board, but your deck better and better and better, so you're hoping to draw into all the goodness later on. Winter Moon really does that.
I really enjoy the incremental gain that Winter Moon does give you when you're playing. It's just, it's not something that you get to experience in a lot of games.
So here's a question from the forums asked by Kaias42. He wanted to know, how are cards specifically tested? Do you just make decks and play them, or is there something else involved?
Well, there's a long process involved in the entire gamut of design.
Mhm.
We usually start. The most important thing is to get the base of the set down. So once you realize what it is you want to be doing with the set, you can start. Let me block here.
Blocking important.
Remembering to play. That's always good too.
Exactly. So we have to ensure that. What is? Oh, okay. We have to ensure that the base limited environment is the most fun. So that's usually where we start, because
Mhm.
the commons are going to reflect all of the mechanics that we want to do. Like, if we have a new mechanic we want to play with, obviously it has to show up all the way throughout at every rarity, and that's going to affect limited. And so we start there. We do a lot of sealeds. And then we move on. We do some booster drafts, and then from there, we're basically building up from commons to uncommons to finally rares and legendaries. And so we can't actually start doing all the constructed testing until we take care of those things first. And so that takes the primary things that we have to work on, and then we can start moving on to some of the more fun designs at a later point in the design process. And then once we start doing all the constructed testing, we've got a great team of developers and deck builders that look for all the troublesome cards and start testing those, and we're able to find the stuff that we think would be most fun for constructed that way. Usually by that point, I'm pretty hands off because I'm not the best constructed player. I'm much more interested in designing what the cards can do, as opposed to, well, this guy is just too insane. You can't play this or print this. So I don't have the best eye for that stuff. But we have a great team that is able to fill in those holes where we need to.
That's really cool.
So you would see yourself as more of a limited player than a constructed player?
Oh, that's just rude.
Spiders everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely play a lot more limited, both internally and whenever I get a chance to play in the game client. Although I grind a lot of arena too. I really enjoy any PV that we're able to put out there.
Very cool.
We have a question actually from the stream, specifically relating to that arena that you're talking about. Shosny asks, did you actually get a chance to work on any of the current arena decks?
I worked on almost all of the arena decks at one point or another. Arena had a long development process where we had to figure out what everything was going to do, how Arena was going to be structured. So I got to have a hand in that, along with building all the decks. Jason, one of our developers, he and I jammed out a lot of games of Arena long before it ever saw the light of day. Just making sure that all the decks were doing something completely different. And yeah, eventually it was pulled out, or we moved it into some other people's hands, and so they got to put the final touches on Arena.
Mhm.
But there's definitely a lot of things still there from whenever I was originally working on it. And yes, I did help build Zarlox. So
So now we knew who to blame.
Now we
You
know
can
who
put-
to blame.
you can put some blame on me, but I did not have the final say in everything on it. But I will accept my share of blame. But I still stand by. I like having Zarlox in there because you got to have some fear whenever you're going through something like that.
Fair enough. Ryan here, fan of fear.
Yeah.
So, here's a question. Matt Dunn's article that was published on the main site gives a cool peek at the idea of cards that don't belong in a given set, like Zartaxis, Bishop of the Azurfang. That was the example he gave us. How much weight do you put on cohesion within sets versus what between sets? TCGs evolve, right?
Yeah. I think we put a lot of weight in that. Anytime I'm working on a set and we're first starting out and we'll brainstorm a ton of mechanics and we'll start putting them in there, and you'll slowly start to see things, hey, this is really cool, However, it doesn't have any context with all these other things that are going on.
Mhm.
And so right now might not be the best time to put something like this into the game. But we're able to put it on the back burner and bring it back later. However, that said, a lot of times it's great to... You were speaking about cohesion between the sets,
Mhm.
and I think that's super important as well. Oh, stupid spider.
Yes.
Sorry.
Wow, he's gonna be angry at you after all of this.
Anyways, cohesion between sets is very important. Matt Dunn and I worked very closely, even though he was like heading the ship of set 3 and I was heading the ship of set 4. But set 4 has to continue a lot of the things that set 3 was doing. And once we realized exactly what set 4's goals were, Matt was able to weave in some of the things in set 3 that eventually you'll see is like, oh, wow, okay, so that's why they did it this way, because set 4 is going to do this certain thing that's going to completely make me reevaluate everything, which I think is super important. Oh, jerk.
Have some tricks. Some tricksy tricks. I'll have to block that. As you possibly already know, I do the Star Plates article thing, and a big theme for me is the idea... You love those? Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that there are no strong or weak cards, but instead that cards are useful or not in context. So my question for you is, as a designer, how do you judge a card's power level? Are there warning signs for cards that might get out of hand? Do you have a pretty good eye for things, or is it just testing, and then more testing?
I'd say I have a pretty decent eye for the base mechanical level of things. It's basically when we decide, hey, is this something that we actually want to see a lot of? That we have to say, okay, we can kind of push this, or we shouldn't push this. Like, I think there's certain... Ooh, that's terrifying. But there's definitely certain factors that were like, okay, this is a design that's that could potentially be troublesome, like Abominate on a Deathless Guardian. no, that's actually fine. Yeah, so we try to push the things that are going to encourage new and fun environments. Not only fun for the player playing it, but also fun for the other player, hopefully. So that way the interaction between the two players can be interesting. Yeah, so there's like a couple fun cards like this one.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a fan of this development.
Boy, that's a very fun card. See, like, Sin is a great card, for example, because he does something completely different. He gets to start storing up all these cards from my deck and let me use them over and over and over again. So that's a design. That's a brand new type of thing that I would love to have in play, and some of us are lucky enough to have that.
Oh yeah, no, it's just
Don't you worry about his interaction with spider's egg, since you've got a few in your deck.
That's an interesting point of view. I'll weigh that out as I in the next couple turns.
just hope you don't hit one.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Let's see. 3.
Sorry, I kind of got off topic from what you were talking about, but I got distracted by a dragon.
No, that's completely reasonable. I just have to make hard decisions here. Let's see. Do you get the copies? You only get the copies when you attack, huh?
Yes.
Well, in that case, let's do this, and hopefully I won't regret it.
Oh my. Oh my.
So.
Alrighty.
We are at a standstill, sir.
Yes, indeed.
So I guess here's another question.
Yeah.
How closely does your internal meta match with the meta that is developed by the community? Which I guess might be another one of those borderline questions you might not be able to ask. But do you often see the community doing things that you're like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what we expected them to do? Or does it veer off into the I didn't think they'd discover that this soon? Or, yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. Sometimes I don't think they'll just, or I didn't think that they would discover, or they'll find something that I've never really thought about. But again, I'm not a developer, so I don't have as much information about like our internal meta as some of the other developers here might. But I would say that, yeah, usually there's certain cards where that internally we're like, oh my gosh, this card is so good, and then it never gets played, and it goes the other way sometimes as well, where I'm like, oh, I didn't think that card would actually be good. But again, that's probably a better question for one of our developers.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Actually, here's a follow-up question because
Sure.
Your title, as it presents me, is lead content designer on Set 4. So what's the difference between a developer versus a designer? Like, how do you? What do these shoes or hats look like at Hex End?
So as the designer, I take a blank slate, which is all the cards. And I start filling all the boxes, and I'll put attack and defense on everything. And sometimes attack, a certain amount of attack and defense is a design thing. Sometimes it's a development thing. Sometimes it's none of those things. It could just be whatever. But my goal is to make sure that I create the base. That's not how I attack. The base of what these cards are going to do, and I'm also trying to create the environment in which they'll exist in. Developers' jobs are to help guide me. They can get a better handle on what our current sets look like. All right. Fine. What our current like metagame looks like. They can also get a handle on what types of things are going to be problematic. They're just able to give me a more competitive perspective on things, I guess. And they're also they have a heavy hand in shaping the worlds that we want to actually create as far as mechanics go. Cool.
So I guess, forgive this probably twisted analogy, but if we were to imagine that designing a TCG is a paint by numbers experience, you would be the person who splashes on all the color, and then the designers come back later, or developers. Sorry, developers come back later and then pencil in the lines around where they want things to kind of look like.
That's actually very accurate, I would say. Even though it's a completely amorphous analogy, I think that's a very good one.
So here's a fun one.
Sure.
So I don't know if you're familiar with our little mascot here, Winston. He's our little dinosaur friend. If Winston were a card, what would Winston's stats be?
I'm going to go with 2-3 just because that's a fun... Well, he's not a buffalo, though. You know what I think he is?
Turn him into a buffalo.
He's like a little 1/1, but I think he's going to have some ability on him that makes him get real large just for a little bit. Like, he's full of power, but you just don't... I don't know what exactly it is, but something makes him explode with power just for a little bit.
Nice.
That's my on the fly response to that.
Okay, I've got to think about exactly what the heck I'm going to do here because I'm not a fan of this development. I think
I didn't hit a spider, luckily.
Yeah. I think you're going to have too many blockers to make this an effective strategy, but I've got to try it. That life gain, so problematic.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Oh no. Oh no. Things are going south.
Oh no, no!
Things are going Southerland.
Oh. They're going Sutherland indeed.
So good. Go team.
Oh man, I think that's the end of me.
Team.
Okay, go team wreck Dino.
Just out of nowhere, BAM!
Can I? Oh yeah. Okay, this guy for free? Sure.
Why not?
Might as well. I
Rest
gotta
of
get
my
you back
deck
for those
free?
spiders.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
sounds pretty good.
Oh, of course, of course.
Sin OP.
GG, my friend. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
see you in game number 2.
Alrighty.
All right, I've got to find another question. Any good ones from the chat there, Sal? We probably have some more. I've got this big question document.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've got quite a few. Those are the ones I've tossed your way.
Here's actually a pretty decent one. We asked Ben Stoll about RNG, but here's kind of a follow-up to this. It's a pretty well-known fact that my poor monkey brain has a hard time with randomness. Sometimes I'm not alone. Some people on the forums give RNG a bad rap. How do you use RNG as a hex designer to improve player experience?
I think RNG is best when it's creating situations that you normally never in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that by like, oh, I'm normally not hit for 1 to 10 damage at random. I mean, it should be a very controlled amount. So usually, like, creating something at random that's within a range. So, like, I really enjoy parallel evolution, for example, because you know what you're getting is going to be a slight increment to wherever you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
However, you're never quite sure exactly what that increment is going to be. Like when you take a 3-cost troop and turn it into a 4-cost Rechosaurus or a 4-cost Wrathwood Master Moss, those cards are similar but different, and so now you have to start responding to the situations that you're in at this point. And so RNG allows us to create new situations that the players aren't normally in and have to adapt to those situations. I think that's the most important part, is that you have to adapt. Also, I don't think just pure RNG is the best. I think when it's something like parallel evolution, obviously you're creating a board state where you're saying, hey, this is a great time for me to use this type of effect. So you're actually having some ownership over what's about to happen. And I think that's the best type of RNG, is when those two things are going to happen. When it's A, something that you have ownership over, and B, something that's within a tight enough range that, so like if parallel evolution said, transform each of your troops into something that costs 1 to 5 more, I don't think that's as good of an execution.
I see. So sort of keeping some control over what happens.
And also the outcome should be somewhat like within a range of expectations that isn't super wide. So the smaller the range, obviously you still want some range, because otherwise that RNG isn't actually doing anything.
Right.
But you do want some range there.
So someone from the chat is asking specifically about like Reese and his limitations of bringing only artifacts, or artifact or robots. Sorry, into
I
play.
think that's
That being a limitation that you're talking about.
That is a limitation. There's obviously we're a large team, so there's a lot of people with different opinions on this.
Mhm.
Now, the thing about Reese is that there's actually a lot more that you're putting into him in order to get the output. So that's why he's able to make a wider range of things like Titanic Mega Hulks, like
Right.
or Tower Hulks,
Yeah.
which isn't the best, but because you're putting so much into it, we want to make sure that you can get these explosive things at the end.
Yeah, there's payoff. Like
Yeah.
Ben was saying, you jump through a hoop, you should get a treat.
Yes. That's one of Ben's big things, is that if you jump through a hoop and you're not getting something worth the hoop,
Mhm.
then why are we making this hoop?
Right. No,
So-
that's fair.
So, yeah. So, things like Reese and Ingenuity Engine,
Mhm.
that they have a wide range of things they can do, but there's a lot of stuff you got to put into actually getting there.
So I guess this is a little bit of a follow up, and sorry to be so much on the RNG, but Hex as a digital space allows for the use of RNG in a way that is really kind of unique. It's one thing to say something random happens. It's another thing to say something random happens and the computer takes control of it and lets that happen. It's different from sitting at a table with some friends and flipping some coins. Like, you're talking potentially thousands of robots down the line for Reese. Like,
Sure.
The longer we go, the greater that range becomes. So
Yeah. But your opponent does have some ability in order to counteract that, I think. Because the longer it goes on, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to remove Reese or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely see. There's definitely an argument against the type of range that you get out of something like Reese, but I don't know. Like,
Well,
I think it's. What's up?
To clarify, I'm not trying to make an argument against or for
Oh,
Reese. I'm asking you, as a designer, how do you view the digital nature of Hex opening up or limiting the possibilities of what you can do with RNG, I guess. So how does designing for a digital space make RNG design different than if you were using a physical product?
I'm sorry, I completely misunderstood then.
No, that's fine.
I think it's great because the longer we have, the longer this game is around, the more different things we can actually do with it.
Mhm.
So, for example, in just set one, if we said create a random plant,
Mhm.
the pool is small,
Mhm.
and it gets much more interesting the larger and larger that pool becomes. Yeah, I'm not falling for this.
Why? He's just a little tutu.
Yeah, I don't know about
Small, innocent.
Just no thank you. Yeah, so but now by set 4, when we say create a random plant, you've got more different things. And like I said, I want to keep the range smaller.
Mhm.
So, like, ideally I wouldn't want to say create a random plant. I want to say create a random plant that costs 1 or 2. Or
I
something.
see. Okay, so really honing in on that range. So
Yeah,
people
you
know
want
what to expect.
to be able to have some expectation as to what's going to come out.
Mhm.
Whereas create a random plant could create something like 1 Briar Legion as opposed to like 1 Heart of the Wrathwood,
Mhm.
which that the game suddenly becomes about that one roll of the dice as
Mhm.
opposed to a smaller amount of things that could have happened. Or like if it was create a random plant that costs 3 or less and you got a Briar Legion, that's expected. That's somewhere in a range that you could expect.
Very cool. Let's see. I bet I have some more awesome questions for you. Hmm. Actually, no. I'm going to focus on winning this game for just 1 second.
What? No. Take your time. Go read some more forum posts and find some more questions for us.
Let's go in here. You probably have some nasty trick. Oh, of course you have a nasty trick. Of course you do. Well, that's a Gurface moment.
Oh, look out.
Alright, I've got to decide if... Nope. I was going to say this is going to take a little bit of thought. It doesn't.
I was going to say, sure.
On guard. Yeah, why not? She come out to play again.
Welcome back.
Let's see. So, as somebody who comes up with all of these crazy ideas, what is an existing card that you thought was really cool in the design and or test phase, but didn't pan out quite the way you'd expect it to, right? Because you're splashing on all the color, and then other people are reining it in. Can you comment on that? Something really cool that happened.
That one's a little tougher for me right now, just because my set hasn't actually
exactly
yet,
right.
So
right.
Those are questions that I think about all the time. But
you can't reveal anything. I
don't want to
keep mum.
I don't want to tip my hat too much.
Yeah, fair enough. Man, I don't know what I should be doing. Let's do this.
Uh-oh.
And now I need to swing in with this.
Okay.
Yeah, why not? I need to get that out of the way anyway.
Yeah. You get a free spirit too.
Yep.
Or phantom.
It's gonna be helpful. People in chat, he created Zarlox, avenge us all.
Oh.
So I guess here's a question. You worked a little bit on the arena and designing sort of events that have a lot of randomness. Do you see tools down the line that'll help mitigate some of that? If you could comment, probably can't.
On the randomness?
Yeah, so Zarlox is one of those things that I view as having actually a very large range of randomness. And I guess, does randomness differ in a PvE environment versus a PvP environment, as far as designing is concerned? Because Zarlox, turn 1, right out of the gate, you can have a Tarantula. You can have 2 Tarantulas. You can have 3 Tarantulas, and then you're just like, well, what do I do now? Tears streaming down my face.
I would definitely say that Zarlox is a high range of randomness. I would not disagree with that point. What? Oh, that is rude.
Go away. We don't like your kind here.
How am I supposed to answer your questions when you're being so rude to me?
See, you're supposed to let the interviewee win, Dino, so that they'll answer more questions. Come
Never.
on.
My honor is on the line.
But you fell for my
Hey,
trap.
I'm getting crushed
Oh,
over
you
here,
have
so.
you have a prize fall. No. Duh.
You got too proud.
I did.
Wasn't I dead?
You were dead. There was no reason to do that. Oh.
Whoops.
Whoops.
I even realized afterwards. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't block like this.
Yeah, I have
Unless
a
he gets-
womp
he gets too
animation here.
proud.
Or a punt animation. Yeah, here we go. No. Now if you drop something big, I'm doomed.
Yeah.
Like that.
Kudos.
Oh.
Fortunately, I can't attack you.
That's true.
So, anyways, back to your question.
Mhm.
I think PvE does allow us to open up the reins a little bit, like pull back a little bit more and allow things like that to happen. Obviously, I think, like, when we created Fenteo, I think Fenteo is a more PvP friendly version, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For what we would like a PvP Zarlox to look like.
Mm.
Um,
And why is that? What constraints make it PvP friendly?
because there is a point of interaction for the player, for your opponent. On turn 3, I can play a Fenteo.
Mm-hmm.
That gives you a whole turn to do whatever you want in order to interact with Fenteo.
Mm-hmm.
It also means that you had those first couple of turns in order to build up whatever presence. So if you're playing an aggressive deck, you're able to put a lot of pressure down.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are playing I am not attacking.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure. Oh my god, do I have...
I don't think you're sure.
I think you want to attack.
Arrgh, what am I doing? I guess I'm playing this guy.
Oh.
It's not my favorite play. Anyways, so I think...
Oh, that's not good.
Oh!
That's not good. Cannot
Jeez.
believe I threw away my advantage like that. This is terrible. Okay, all right.
So anyways, so there's a point. So you have several turns early
Mhm.
that you can attack, and then you have a turn where Fenteo doesn't do anything, and if you're able to Pride's Fall, or whatever piece of, this is looking bad. Then you have the time in order to do that,
Mhm.
or martyr or murder. What you have a turn in which you have that point of interaction to destroy it, and then you have to start fearing the tarantulas that are in your deck after that.
Okay.
And with Fenteo, you're trading off. All right, I got to think about this real quick.
Fair enough.
What does this guy have? Oh, that guy's terrible. All right, that's my final answer. All right. So yeah, I forget where we were talking, but
You're talking about Fenteo and how it has a point of interaction, and that makes it different as far as
Correct.
RNG is concerned for a PvP versus a PvE design.
exactly, yeah. And whenever we I think you got me this time. All right, good game. Oh wait, wait. There could be a spider.
There could be.
Come
Oh
on,
no.
spider. Come on, spider.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh no! Why? Kismet, why?
Hey, it's that RNG you were talking about earlier.
Oh, my goodness.
Zarlox heard me.
Yeah. Patron
Alright.
saint of Zarlox gets all the spiders when he needs them. Alright, we got a...
Well, he did create the guy.
All right.
He owes him at least
I need
somewhat.
One more. Come on. All right.
This time around, maybe? Maybe, sorta? Are you gonna crush my dreams again?
No. Not this
Woo! Woohoo!
One more.
One more indeed, with like 8 minutes left.
Hey, that's plenty of time.
Sure. Plenty.
Anyways,
I've won that.
so
I've won it.
in PvE, I think we have the opportunity to kind of take the reins off a little bit, but I wouldn't say completely.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess my question that I have for you, because you were just talking about points of interaction, how do you go about designing an interactive card? I feel very strongly that when you're looking particularly at a PvP game, you want cards to feel good when they are played against you, right? I mean, yes, you want that arg moment, or like, yes, you foiled my plan, but you want to feel, as a player anyway, good about that and like you had choices as the game progresses. So how do you go about trying to inject interactivity into your designs?
Well, it's all about creating things that players haven't really interacted with before, I guess.
Mhm.
And so you're creating new experiences. Obviously, anytime you create a troop, there's going to be interaction because combat is a great thing. So, like, one of my favorite trigger points is when a troop deals damage to an opposing champion. I think that's a great trigger point because you're forcing combat. You're saying, hey, this guy is awesome, but only if he hits. So somebody like Yancey is great.
Yeah.
Because Yancey gets in there, and if he hits, he gets to create his Murdertron, and that Murdertron is a Murdertron. And so creating a card like that, which I did not, but Matt Dunn did, and I think that's a great example of how you are able to make a card that says, hey, let's interact. And I think another good one is Psychotic Anarchist. He's a very aggressively costed guy, and he gets in there, and he draws a card for each player. But that creates interaction because you're giving your opponent, you're getting more fuel for your aggressive deck, but you're giving your opponent more ability to answer your aggressive deck. And so you're increasing the number of options both players have, which I think is a great thing.
Nifty. So you were talking a little bit about stat curves and what's an aggressive cost or a less aggressive cost. Can you comment on that? Like what makes something over or understated? I assume you have some kind of internal numbers in there that you probably don't want to share, but like.
Yeah,
I've noticed certain kinds of.
I don't even know if we have internal numbers as much as it's internal in my head.
Yeah.
I look at a guy and I go, "This guy looks like a beatdown machine."
Fair enough.
I don't know if I could really comment more about that type of thing.
So, as a player and as somebody who spent a lot of years in academia, for me, there are patterns that I've been looking at and recognizing. I like to call them magic numbers.
Sure.
Things within the 4 or 5 attack or defense range. Sort of the upper limit, particularly when you talk about a sealed or a draft environment. And I've also noticed that we see reoccurring numbers, like in every set that's been released so far, we have a 4 to a troop, whether that is Ambling Bluff, Assault Bot, Giant Spider Spawn. Will we see a 4-2 troop in set 4?
I'm thinking, I would be shocked if I didn't have a 4-2 somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I definitely have a 4-2 somewhere.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. So yes, there's a spoiler.
4-2 confirmed.
4-2 confirmed.
Nice.
What's that? Oh, sorry. Down? Oh. Oh, I can.
Ooh. A little bit
Sorry,
clear there.
I'm getting some direction that I'm not loud enough, which is something nobody in this office would say normally.
Yeah, just sort of running off some of these numbers, like, you guys really seem to like the one defense or one, I guess, one attack or one defense sort of off the range, like a lot of Buffaloes, that 2-3. I almost view that as your on-curve play for 3 than a normal statted 3-3 that you might expect from other games. It's just sort of interesting little tweaks to the formula. Is that an intentional desire to slow down games, or is there a certain... What philosophy do you have when it comes to assigning stat values to your troops, I guess, is the...
I'll be honest, I assign values that I feel are correct, but throughout development, sometimes those things change. Whenever there's like a mechanic we want to push, we try to give those guys a little bit more love. And so a lot of those decisions aren't made early on. They're made as we continue to play test and say, hey, this guy plays in a great way, so why don't we try to push him so players are more likely to play this. One of the biggest things is that Ben harps on constantly is that we want to be able to push certain cards up so players are excited to play with those ones. Yeah, I'll take that.
Interesting. So again, sort of that making things look tasty. So
right. Yeah, we want you to play with the fun cards, and so a lot of times, like take set 3, we have like things like Granite Giant. He's a big body if that's what you need, but he's not super fun, and so I wouldn't say he's the best value.
Right.
So we would much rather push you towards somebody like some of the Allegiance guys, because they're like, hey, if you are the Coyote guy, then you get to draw a card, and so we want you to feel good about. Oh man, you are in trouble.
Uh-oh. Oh no.
Oh man.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Oh. Oh. Ow.
So eagly.
Oh. Can feel the pain already coming down.
Oh, I guess I could have attacked with the background guy too. Whoops.
You could have. So, ow.
He's giving you a reprieve. He wants to make the pain last longer.
Apparently.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I like finding unique stats too, like things that we don't see very often in our game, and try to fill in all those holes.
Too bad you have activated my trap card.
Oh.
Sideboarded those in as soon as I saw that sin. It's like, never again, never forget.
I do enjoy going all in on these things, don't I? Spies.
Yep. We know what you're doing.
Okay, yeah.
Crypt Shrieker is going to be a problem.
I guess I'm getting in there.
Well, let's go ahead and give him a little bit more oomph.
I see.
Yep. And yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. I guess it's all up to my spirits now. or
Let's
it's not
even.
as my spirits.
Let's even the score here.
Oh man.
We'll go one of those, one of these, and one of these.
So I've got a question for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
How proud are you?
Oh, you had it again, didn't you? You had it again.
You've got a fleet of spirits now.
Yeah, that makes me feel slightly better. Not that much better though. Oh, jerk. Okay, I've got to figure out what I want to do here. You must have like a billion of those just waiting in the wings.
What, the prize?
Prize falls. You have one every time.
There
It's
were
awful.
a few of them getting passed around. That's for sure.
I think this is a card that people don't give enough love to.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that,
I think
definitely.
I was gonna say I think I cut 2 at least.
See?
I don't know how he has so many of them.
No.
Yeah, you didn't deserve him anyway. And I think this is what I want to do.
Okay. That does make things more difficult.
So now we're even.
We are even. Alright.
So I guess here's a question,
Yes.
which you absolutely don't have to give specifics, but is there
Okay.
something that you are really excited to share with the community in your set? Because obviously, you've been doing a lot of work designing stuff that we haven't seen yet.
Right.
It's very hard to ask specifics, and I'm sure there's going to be a time and a place for awesome, crazy reveals. But do you have something that you just can't wait to see how the community is going to take your mad science creations?
I think there are a lot of things in the set. I mean, the whole set as a whole is something I'm really proud of,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't wait to get it into people's hands once we're finally ready to get it out there. And so every day is just like, come on, how much longer? How much longer?
Oh dear, I have 1 minute left on my time. I should be playing and not talking.
All right, how about I talk and you just keep playing,
Sounds good.
because this isn't looking great for me anyways. So, yeah, there's a lot of things I'm really excited to get out there, but I think one of the I guess I can kind of I can't give you any specifics about mechanics or exact designs, but I think one of the things that's been waiting for a while to see the light of day is our artisanal cheese smith.
Artisanal cheesesmith.
And I cannot wait to see how people respond to that. Because
Oh,
I
man.
think he will be beloved.
That sounds amazing.
Oh no. Oh no.
That's right, fear me.
This is all I can do. So I think that'll be once he sees the light of day, I think people will be pretty excited for that one.
What in the world are you holding in your hand? It's like 5 sins. That's gotta be it, because I don't know.
Just stand back in these sins because I was like, how do I not play all of the sins? Oh no.
Oh god, 50 seconds. We can do this. Da-da.
Ah!
Go, my minions.
Oh, no. Also, yeah, the whole set I think is going to be a ton of fun once it comes out, and we had some visitors recently, and man, I think you've got me.
Oh,
Got
there
this
comes the
guy.
eagle.
Yeah. There's not even any spiders to save me this time. All right. Well, good game.
GG.
With your 33 seconds.
Right?
But it was a well-fought game, and congratulations.
Super close. Give me a run for my money.
I'll let you get that last blow on me.
Well, kindly.
Yeah, we had some visitors recently, and just having them.
I was one of them.
Oh, were you? Okay. And
yeah, I spent a long time talking to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember. Yes. Just seeing people react to the set is. Mm-hmm. This is my first full set to work on, so seeing the reaction of people was just awesome. It was just a joy.
It must be magical, you know. I maybe someday hope to potentially do something close to what you guys do. You know, just as a player, knowing all the joy and excitement and passion that's poured into games in general, and Hex in specific, you know, being on the other side of that, somebody who crafted those experiences for somebody, it must be incredibly rewarding.
Yep. All right. Well, I gotta go because you're gonna be switching over to Phil, I think.
All right.
Which I think is actually perfect because Phil was the lead developer on the set. So see you guys later. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
See ya. Thank you. You'll have to fix that quote.
Which quote?
I added a quote to the stream. What I You're gonna have to put his name together, but that was classic. How proud are you? Please, Brad Small.
That was a good play. That was a fantastic play. Oh my goodness. Oh, yep, I've got the call coming in. Add to group call. There we go. Hello.
Oh, hello.
Welcome.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. I have a pretty sweet deck, and yep. I just played against Matt Dunn, who was the lead designer of Set 3, so it was developer versus designer, and it was pretty clear my deck was more brutally efficient, while his was much more creative and used a lot of the different themes available. So I felt like that was a good match.
Hey, he's playing Dreaming Fox. I mean, how you can't? It's just awesome right there.
Yeah, he's a dreamer. That's why we love him.
Nameplate number 2. Let's get that. Actually, while I set up some small interface things, if you would do me a solid and just introduce yourself and tell me and others, our viewers here listening, what do you do? What gets you up in the morning?
Well, my name is Phil Cape. I am a developer on Hex. So I get up in the morning to come in and help try and make the game a little more. A lot of people here are very, very creative, and they are very. They have wild flights of fancy, and they will. My job is often to rein that in, and it breaks my heart because some of the stuff is so good, and often I'm just adding structure, going through and commenting on power level, trying to help make the vision play out the way that they want it to, I guess is how I would put it.
Okay.
I actually have an article going up on Monday where I describe that and talk about some of the specifics of doing this for Set 3.
Well, very cool.
Yep, sorry, I'm playing slowly.
No problem at all. I mean, heck, look at our last game. We went to the very last bit of time.
Yeah, because we're playing with Ryan.
So I guess, not to put words in your mouth, but you're a professional dream crusher, then.
Yeah, I mean, I like to take the dreams. I don't turn them into like nightmares. It's more just like you slowly wake up and you're like, oh, I'm in a different place, but it still works the same way.
No, structure is very important.
Yeah. All the nuts and bolts are kind of what I end up paying attention to.
Yeah. After all, if we If we're just dreaming all the time, nothing would get done.
Yep. And this is sort of embarrassing, but I was paying attention to this and I misclicked and kept the hand I should not have kept. So
Oh dear.
it's actually
Oh,
pretty
dear.
good if I get one
earlier.
more. One more. So we'll see.
Gotta believe.
Nope, sorry. Yeah. So I was, well, yeah. This set, I don't want to spoil too much of what I talked about in Monday's article, which is a lot about how we structured this set. But we had very specific goals going into the set, and we wanted to make sure that not only were the multi-shard cards introduced and embraced, but we were also making sure that the additional races were inserted and they had their proper field. But we also had to make sure that there was enough of the old cards that players who were attached to a race from set 1 and 2 play pattern, they had something to get to. So here we go. It's coming.
Nice. Yeah, well, maybe every new set you need just a little bit more goodies, just to keep people excited about collecting new cards and the like.
And balancing out how much that is, talking about set size, designing the common print runs to make sure that cards come out balanced. It's all stuff that seems like it just work, and I have to consult with a lot of different people to figure out how to structure it like what their vision is, and then try to convert it into sort of numbers, and we need this many of this card and this many of this card, and so on.
Yeah, it must be a crazy house of cards.
It is, but it's I think a lot of people see it as grunt work and not the work that they want to do, and I really love it, so it works out really nicely for me.
No, balancing is so important. I mean, I have said this before, and I'll say this again. Some of the sets that I have drafted in Hex have been just the most tight. They are a joy to experience.
Thank you very much.
That comes
We all
from the
appreciate
numbers that you guys...
And it's not just me, just to be clear. Everyone here contributes, everyone has their own unique voice, and they bring something to the table. For example, Jason is a much more prolific playtester. He usually has his finger on the pulse more than I do of exactly what's happening with the specifics. Sorry. Dan has a much better understanding of how the player feels when certain things happen. So I'm more apt to let a bad play pattern go for too long. Where he will nip that in the bud right away, and
bring all your different strengths.
Yeah. Yep.
That's fantastic.
We're the 3 core developers, and obviously the designers also have developer instincts, and Ben is sort of a hybrid, so he often weighs in heavily on power level, and he has his own top level vision that he kind of carries down from Corey's vision of how the game's going to play, and it's a real... The biggest thing I learned working here is how to work with people. And not, in the customer service sort of way where you're just trying to make them happy and give them... No, it's how to actually adapt your work style to someone else's, and it's Jesus.
Yep.
Well, this is a start.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was a good hand.
This is a start. I don't. If I'd hit all my resource drops, I don't think I'd be where I wanted to be. Jeez. What do I do about this?
Let's go in. Do.
I could just take what, like 5 and 9. Jeez, so much damage.
So, with that lead in sort of what you do at Hex, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are as a player? We've been asking everybody if they're Johnny, Timmy, Spike, that sort of thing.
Everyone I'm the spikiest Spike.
The spikiest Spike, whoever spiked.
I'm the spikiest. Yeah, I got made fun of during this draft because I was excited about my deck and how streamlined it was. And everyone was like, "Oh yeah, you're just gonna go win," and now I'm getting my butt kicked by a deck that's even more streamlined than mine. So here we are.
Awesome. Yeah. I think everybody has little bits of each in them.
That's true. And it is a balance. I think I'm probably more. I'm not very Johnny. I would definitely be more Timmy.
Fair enough.
Johnny, and I'd probably be a little more Melvin if that's a thing. Is that a thing?
Is there Melvin? We were having Ben share with us some of the archetypes there.
Melvin's a guy who cares about rules interactions, specific ones, and Vorthos is the. That's flavor guy.
Okay, all right. So that's why we get cool cards like Gortazuma.
Yes. Gortazuma is... Matt Dunn loves flavor. Ben loves flavor. Matt Dunn is probably the lore expert within R&D, I would say. He spends the most time poring over we have an internal Wikipedia with a lot of the story stuff. And he knows that stuff. The book by Christy Golden, The Accidental Knight, when that came out, he was waiting. He got the advanced copy, and he started going through it, looking for characters to put into this set. because that's the kind of connections we need to have to make the whole thing work. And if we didn't have everybody doing their part, it wouldn't be the game that it is.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. So I guess along that lines, what's your favorite set 3 archetype to draft as the spikiest of spikes?
I really like the Blood Diamond deck. I really like the Ruby Diamond deck.
Sort of fast, hit them hard, you know, and where it hurts.
Yeah. I generally like to play aggressive decks, and don't know what to do about a player who plays 4/4s every turn. And then turns them back to 4/4s by getting 1/1s for their 1/2s. This is a very, very good this Emperor's Lackey is one of my favorite cards that we had in the set, and I think he was sort of a late addition, but Ben was trying to fill a specific need, and this was a design that I think had bounced around from other sets, and it was something similar to this in set 1 with different numbers, and that got bounced for space and it didn't really fit. And set 2, it got bounced, and Ben was holding on to this design waiting, and it fit perfectly. We tweaked it a little bit, and it's one of my favorite cards in the set.
It's really interesting because it starts out super powerful, and then it slowly ramps down its power level, and so you've got to work really hard to keep that high energy.
With a Nana, you don't have to work that hard. I mean, come on. you gave -1 health to your guy.
Fair enough.
Use some charges. Oh my goodness. I am not sure I even want to show you more cards in my deck. I'm dead serious. I don't think I can win. All right.
It's pretty hard. I mean, I've got lots
to
coming in.
side or to reserves. Let's see if I've got anything to deal with 4/4s in here.
Sounds good. Let's move on to some of the other questions we have for you.
Sure, yeah. Fire away.
So, do you... this is something from the forums, asked by Magic Gaz. Do you plan on having mechanics return regularly in future sets? There are no Inspire cards in set 3, for example. Will that be the norm, or will we see things like Inspire, Shift, etc. appearing on some cards in future sets, even though they're not the main focus? I asked this... Go ahead.
I definitely don't want to rule it out. If a mechanic fits, we should use it, especially if it's a mechanical and thematic fit. However, we want to make sure each set has its own identity, and a lot of that starts, like, when we build the set, it starts from mechanics up often. And we start with a loose theme and some loose mechanics, and we kind of bring them together organically. And if a theme fits, we don't want to cross it off, but I think we want to, for the time being, try and keep introducing enough new things that we still build out the patchwork of what is Entrath and what is Hex.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And a lot of the themes that have come out, keywords, special digital doodads that Hex has put in, have been really cohesive. Like, you look at tunneling. Tunneling as a keyword wouldn't work by itself, just a one-off or a two-off in a set. You need a couple of them to really make the mechanic work. Because, if you have one tunneler, you know exactly what it is. There's no suspense, there's no surprise. It's like, yeah, okay.
Tunneling is my absolute favorite mechanic in the set. In the game. And it came up in we were struggling for a mechanic on that set. We had a period of time, we set it aside. It was Thursday of that day. We had 4 mechanics that we weren't very happy with, and we went to lunch, and someone was like, I had this idea. I think this would be cool, and it would overlap with the Shinhare and the dwarves, and they kind of pitched it, and it was almost exactly the way it was.
Nice. So just went straight through.
It basically saved the day at the end. It was really awesome. And not really saved the day, because this was the first 4 weeks of working on
right.
But
it's the eureka moment. The light bulb went off, and you're like, this is the direction we're going to go.
Yep. And just the other day, we found a pile of papers about this thick that was literally just lists of mechanics with example cards, and all of them were so bad. I'm so glad none of them went in.
Well, you've got to create all these crazy ideas and whittle it down. It's like a sculpture.
Yep, exactly. Sand is much better.
Peel off until you only have the good stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
So I guess here's another question. What are your thoughts on counters within a TCG environment? Obviously, this is a big question, can be addressed on multiple levels. We know the traditional aggro, control, combo, triangle. But, particularly in set 3, we can see it on the card level. For example, Vampire Kiss ruins Ruby aggro. Staggering Blast and Singing Ambush make spiders cry. Why are counters aimed at specific archetypes, and why is that desirable?
Well, one thing that we want to try and identify is play patterns that will be... So I know Ryan touched on this as well, but when we talk about fun, we talk about the concept of net fun, which is, it's not just how much fun I'm having playing with it, it's how much fun I'm having versus how much not fun you're having playing against it.
Yeah.
The sweet spot is when we get a mechanic that you feel okay when you lose to it too, because you're like, wow, that was pretty sweet. Those are really, really rare. In general, we try and get something that's about 0 or like negative. I'm going to give every example in numbers also.
Yeah, that's fine.
0 or -1, while the plus is 5, 6, 7, something like that.
So it feels really good to win, but it's like, it's only a little bit. It stings, but I'll get over it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we look at the concept of net fun, and when there's certain mechanics that could potentially lead to a unfun experience, we'd like to put a safety valve in there for us, because, for example, spiders was one that although we were confident that we had the numbers right, when we put them in and everything looked right on paper, sometimes you're just a little bit off, and if we were just too much off there, we could ruin a lot of people's experience of the set because they are such a large portion. So we felt it was safe to put in some amount of safety valves, because if spiders are running everywhere, that card's value just goes up from where we thought it was.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, so specifically it was we know spiders might be problematic, but we've got to find a way to interact with them. By the way, I think making them troops was brilliant, because it creates that sort of range of interactivity that is just essential.
One of those breakthrough moments, like with tunneling, where we worked at it. We had a bunch of mechanics that we thought were C pluses or C's, and then we found this way to take it and just twist it up, turn it on its head.
Cool.
Yep.
So you think we'll see more spiders in the future, or is this?
Definitely cross it out. I personally really like the idea of other eggs, but I don't know how many people like that.
So we'll get dinosaur eggs. Oh, ooh, dinosaur eggs. Chicken eggs.
Yep. I know we probably don't want to. We want to make sure so one of the other things is set architecting. We want to make sure that the sets feel distinct from the ones around them, so that as the player plays through set 1, set 2, and then 1-2 draft and sealed format feels totally different than the one that you play in when you're 3-4. Not totally different, but enough distinct. So, for example, a spider deck, we probably don't want another invasive mechanic that puts cards into your opponent's deck and tries to bury them out.
Right.
Set in, whatever the next draft format is going to be.
That makes sense.
So
just sort of
vary it.
Yeah, sort of spice it up, because I know some people in Twitch and on forums will say, "Oh man, set 1 was the best. No, set 2 was the best. No, set 3 was the best." Right? People like different things, and so spicing it up.
That is great to hear. Also, if everyone loved the same set, it would probably get boring.
True enough. So, I guess here's another question. Set 3 saw an emphasis on cards that specifically deal with tribal effects. For example, we now have the cycle of tribal shards, such as Zinzith Silk. Yep. What do you see the role of troop types being in Hex's design?
So, troops are very important, because they are one of the most interactive cards that you can have. Actions are nice, actions are immediate, actions are visceral in relating to the concept of your champion. A champion dealing damage to something seems like it makes the champion feel involved in the game. But troops are sort of the lifeblood, and we need there to be a range. So, low troop decks, high troop decks, and everything in between, but we want troops to be involved in the game a lot, because we have so many cards that need them to be in play to matter. Like we have my article on Monday, half of it is entirely about arrays of removal and how you want to spread them out. So just the fact that we're having that, I mean, we know we need to have a bunch of troops. The other thing I wanted to say about Staggering Blast,
Mm-hmm.
it was sort of a happy accident that it ended up that way, because when it first got plugged in, it was simply a... So at the very outset, I know Ryan said the developer kind of helps give him guidelines about what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we laid it out and we said we want this many troops, sort of this range, and we need this many removal effects, and make sure one does something like this and one does something like this, or one's good against big things and one's good against small things, stuff like that. And so Matt had this list, and he kind of took the things that were left and smashed them together, and he gave it the best playtest name we had, in my opinion. He called it Hotfoot, and I think it cost $3 when we first put it in,
Mm-hmm.
and it was basically the same text box, because he needed to do a can't block effect, and
Yeah.
it deals damage to opposing things that was textured.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of found a way to do it, and it was very cool, and people immediately kind of took to that card, and it was when we figured out the switch to spiders, we went, oh, well, this actually makes it safer because we have this card already and we know it, we've developed it, we like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the Staggering Blast effect is so crucial. I found that often when drafting set 3, particularly if you're in the Ruby Wild archetype, you just get into these stalled board states where it's like, oh man, I've got to get something through.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that? And enter in the Staggering Blast.
Yep. And every time someone blocks with their flight troop, like the spirits, it reminds people that this isn't just nothing can block. There's still some range to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's still some play. Ooh, what's this? Hold on.
Yeah, I knew. I
Ooh.
know what you're up to.
He's an attacker, huh? All right, I'll race you. We can race. You want to race?
Sure.
Give me what I want. My hand is sort of embarrassing right now. I'm kind of glad you guys can't see it. All right. And by you guys, I mean people on the stream or anyone in the office.
So let's see. Here's another one. When you design a set, it must be cohesive for the purposes of limited play. How do you balance the needs of a limited environment with the needs of a constructed environment?
We very carefully. The commons and uncommons tend to shape the limited format more, and we know that some of them will land because we're putting in nuts and bolts powers. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying about varying the effects. We don't want a spider deck, we don't want a spider deck in the next draft format because it has such a unique play pattern. Similarly, when we're deciding what removal effects or troops, like low-cost troops that are simple, we're going to make good, we try and make them varied. So because Burn was a good, cheap removal effect in Ruby, we didn't want to put a really powerful 1 or 2 cost removal effect because they're stepping on each other's toes and they're creating redundancy.
Yeah.
Redundancy is the enemy of fun because redundancy means the games become more homogenized and they feel more the same. So we wanted to make sure that they're separate. So if we're going to have 2 really powerful Ruby removal effects in our constructed format, we want to make sure that they are. I mean, they can't be wildly different because we need Ruby to feel cohesive, but we want it to feel as different as possible while still feeling like they're part of the same unit.
Interesting. Actually, that's really intriguing to me. Do you mind if I follow up on that question?
Sure.
This idea of
like.
The homogeneous deck versus the heterogeneous deck. Because obviously when you're designing a deck just as a player, you need some range to make sure your deck actually runs. It does things consistently. You're not constantly, worried about getting your combo off or your play off. Like, it has to do what it needs to do, hopefully 80% of the time, at least,
Yeah.
So how do you balance that? Because I see exactly what you're talking about. You want things to be different, not only to vary the experience between sets, but also because if everything was if you had all of the burns, we'll use burn as that example. You just had like 20 different versions of burn, and that was your set 1, 2, and 3. You would have people playing nothing but but burns are their equivalent, right?
It sort of subverts one of the base rules of the game, which is the 4 of rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least for constructed, I wouldn't call it. Maybe it's not a base rule of the game, but
It's pretty close. I mean, you want just enough consistency that it makes things well consistent. You know what you're expecting. You can consistency tied to skill. I think is that fair enough to say?
I would also go further and say the actual sweet spot that we're trying to. Oh, I forgot that guy.
I have made that mistake so many times. I cannot even begin to tell you. It's like, oh, I can't be blocked.
But I got this guy, so.
Ooh, that's a problem.
I don't have a 4th resource, so he's kind of just a 2/2 for now. 2/2 that I can't attack or block with aggressively, because he actually matters, and you'll trade whatever for him.
Yep. Let's go with one of those, one of these, one of these.
This game's heating up.
Yep.
All right.
You wanted to race? I'll give you a race.
Yeah. So, yeah, those guys are tough to race. Would you believe I have 3 ways to remove it in my hand that I can't play?
Oh, no. now I'm frantically trying to think through, like, oh, man, what could he have?
They're all different, too.
Oh, good.
The thing I was getting at before about redundant effects, what we actually want is complementary effects, I think, so that when say we believe that the right amount of cards that do thing X is 8. We have one already in set 1 or 2 or previous thing, so card A is over here and we know people are going to play 4 of it, but they need something else, so we make card B, and we want card B to shine with some portion, like there's a Venn diagram, some portion of the things that card A shines with also shine with it, or they shine with it brighter or less. And we want it to also shine with other things, so then it introduces different ways you can build the deck, or different ways that the deck plays based on whether it drew more A or more B, while still getting the redundancy that you need to build your deck around those things.
Nice. I'm looking forward to this article now because I'm trying to think through all of the different forms of removal and how they complement or don't complement each other. Just like in Diamond. Diamond has just this embarrassing amount of wealth when it comes to removal types, in a sense. You've got your Meek, you've got your Repel, you've got your timeout box.
I actually wanted to ask you guys a question.
Sure, yeah.
Because this was sort of an internal debate. I was filling out the removal effects that we had in set 3, and I had 3 cards at low rarities that people told me no one was going to buy it was removal. They were Smirking Trickster, whatever the green or the Wild Ambusher guy is, Snarling Ambusher. And this was, I think, the most controversial, Spirit Eagle.
Spirit Eagle. I guess you could call it tempo removal.
No, it's permanent removal. As long as this guy keeps as long as he's in play, he takes away the blocking ability of one non-flying troop, which is a very, very limited removal effect. But he's attached to a 3/2 flyer body. You're not paying much for it.
Well, okay,
Anyway,
so that's.
I took those 3 out because we were afraid that it would distract focus from the actual points. People would just argue about whether those are removal effects. But I did get removed twice by Snarling Ambushers in the first round. So
the quick troops I definitely see as being removal. I would argue that they are very limited in a sense. The reason why I hesitate to call the Eagle removal is that, yes, it's removing it from an offensive perspective, but a lot of times when you look at removal, almost more important is the defensive aspect of that removal. At least, when I am as a player, when I'm slotting things into my deck that say, okay, I can deal with my opponent's threats, that's sort of the mind space that removal holds for me. Now, from an aggressive frame of reference, yes, I can see how you would call it removal. But Eagle is controversial for me.
Sketchy. I think that one was pretty sketchy. I just wanted to bring it up and give you a taste of some of the.
I think Function here in the chat actually says it best. Spirit Eagle only being removal when you are on the offense. You have to be able to attack with it for it to be able to be removal. If you're not being able to attack, then it's definitely not removal anymore.
Yep. But Repel, you should say the same thing about defense, right?
Yeah.
It's The line is very blurry about what is and what isn't removal, and
That's a fair point.
Yeah, there's probably another card that I could. I'm not gonna. I wouldn't even make that argument if I was.
Well,
No,
no,
see,
Dino
I-
and I have definitely had debates over what's removable
Mhm.
and what isn't removable
Yeah.
over,
Yep.
you know.
I have a whole
Back and forth.
category of removals. You know, I think about this a lot just because it's something I enjoy. So you've got different kinds of tempo removal. You know, do you consider counters removal?
I do.
Do you?
Yeah, I didn't even bring up suffocate to anyone else there,
Mhm.
but I counted it as a removal effect.
Yeah, yeah.
It cares about when you're playing the card.
Yeah.
It,
There's all sorts of really interesting things. You know, what makes a hard removal versus soft removal? You know, it's just a whole
I would
huge
argue
internal debate.
that it's all gray. There's very Immortal Decree is probably the only hard one, and even then, if there were cards that cared about getting voided, it wouldn't be hard compared to like Periphagy. Like if there was a
Mhm.
card that said when this is voided, your opponent draws 4 cards.
So you don't see a hierarchy of effects, because I mean I would argue that
It's a spectrum.
yeah.
And you know things can be so far to that side that they basically approach the limit of 1 or 0.
I see. So you don't like
Actually,
you don't like binary categories. You prefer it to be a continuum.
I mean, they're very useful for categorizing things, and we often have to do it. But if I'm trying to actually get down to the heart of it, I would say that it never actually gets there. There is nothing that's entirely hard and nothing that's entirely soft is by necessity soft. I would say where do you draw the line?
Well, okay. So I don't know that I have a specific line per se, but if I had to put one out there, it would be if it removes it off the board, it is hard. If it doesn't remove it off the board, it is soft. Oh no, monster!
That was one of them.
And
You
then if it
monster, no!
removes it from the board but puts it back in the hand, ability to be able to be played again, it's tempo removal.
Yeah.
What about Mesmerize?
Mesmerize
Soft
is I guess that's a good question. It's the hardest soft there is. Right? Because on the one hand, it doesn't get rid of text on the body, but on the other hand, it, for all intents and purposes, if attacking is usually the primary purpose of a troop, and that's not always true, but often true, then it interferes with that primary purpose.
Yep. Or even if blocking is the primary purpose, if they make a sucker's bet one turn,
Right? Exactly.
get them.
Exactly. It removes them from combat, which is perhaps a better way of saying primary purpose is combat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with that. I actually think there's a second continuum as well
Mhm.
that operates on a different axis, which is the range of troops it can kill. Mesmerize deals with so many troops that if I was drawing the spectrum from hard to soft,
Mhm.
my hard would be what portion of the troops in this set it kills.
Ah.
Soft would be the lower end.
Mm-hmm.
And Mesmerize would often deal with a lot of troops because not a lot of troops at low rarities have text boxes that matter while they're stuck exhausted.
Mhm.
Some do, like Pyrosoul Summoner, for example. But
Yeah. No, that's a very good way of thinking about it. I actually have Sel and I put together this insane spreadsheet, which
Boy.
allows us to calculate out the number of troops within a given set or between sets that have certain types of attacks. So you can say, if you're looking specifically for 3 defense troops, you can say that Crackling Bolt or Skewer is going to handle exactly this many. So that's kind of getting at what you're talking about there.
yeah, I don't need to be as precise necessarily, because my goal is mostly to get a rough sense of it and then present it to the team as data that we can, then use to inform our decisions.
Mhm.
But essentially, that's a exercise I do every set, 1 or 2 times
Cool.
as we're iterating on it to kind of be a benchmark to show people and be like, hey, this is where the removal's at. This is how many troops this is killing. This is how many troops this is killing.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
That's
Another question for you, kind of along the same veins, is do you do that same sort of ideas and calculations with troops themselves, not
Oh, no.
necessarily just removal, but taking a
Uh-huh.
look at attack and defense modifiers on card
Yes.
saying, okay, this deals with X percentage of all of the cards in the set.
Yes. Are you getting at like combat tricks, like quick actions that affect combat, or are we talking something broader here? I might have misunderstood the question.
I'm talking troops in general. You were saying that you have
the
you know
sizes?
looking at the attack and defense of the troop compared to the attack and defense of all the other troops in the set. Is that a major consideration when you're looking at it or not?
It is definitely a consideration. We try and use general guideline values that we set out at the beginning of the set. I'll sit down with Matt and we'll say, okay, when I'm putting the skeleton together, I generally put them in 3 categories: small, medium, large, and roughly there's a certain amount of points that you get for each one. Anywhere between like 1 and 5, I would say, is small, but it's flexible based on what other powers it has and what what the set is up to exactly. But I say we want X small, X medium, and X large, and those numbers are just total guidelines. But it's to try and make sure we have a good spread when we first sit down, because sort of the way I see the skeleton portion is it's his job to actually get in and make the best individual thing he can, and it's harder for him to focus on the individual thing when he's trying to think about the whole big picture. So we sit down together, we decide what we want to do, and then I put little markers in place along the path that say, hey, just get to here by this time, and then he can focus on each individual card and then pull back at the big picture after they're all in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, sort of a follow-up. I've noticed in Hex we have a lot of extremes. I'm talking the 1/4s, the 3/1s, that sort of thing.
0-7.
Yeah, 0-7. That's a good one too. Can you comment more fully on why those kinds of extremes are useful and what they do for you in limited and in constructed play?
Well, for one, there's only so many numbers we can go through.
Yeah.
So there's only so many 2-3s and 3-2s you can make where you're planning on having 5 points before you're like, oh, let's make a 4-1 or a 5-1, or whatever. 1-4. Also, there's answering specific commons. Say some color has a bunch of 2-1s, and we wanted them to have a natural foil. We might give that shard or shard pair a bunch of 1/4s. Or 1/3s at roughly the same cost, so that when those two square off, one is clearly at an advantage based on the size of their troops, and then you have to rely on the text boxes to create the distinctions.
So this is actually a question. I have argued with people about this in my stream, and I'm convinced early on, troops with high defense values are more aggressive than troops with high attack values. High attack values are very easily stymied, particularly when they don't have any kind of evasion. But a high defense value. I'm thinking the vine traps of the Hex universe. Like, that thing was a beast. You swing in, and they can't stop you, not unless they want to start losing their stuff.
Vine trap is aggressively statted. And it has 6 points for 3 resources, which is about the top of the curve we do for common and uncommon. We occasionally throw in a 4/3. You are correct that it lets you keep attacking in, but once there's 2 2/2s on the board, it often gets stopped. It's an interesting question, because that is true, and there's a card in one of the sets down the line that definitely plays into that exact theme, and I think there's definitely truth to that, but the flip side is one of the advantages of playing lower cost troops. They have a lower net impact than higher cost cards, but you're always getting the chance that they don't have anything to do there, or they get stuck on resources, and then the number of turns that you kill them in is really important. And so, if you're comparing a 3/2 to a 2/4, the 3/2 will get them done a significant number of turns earlier. However, the 2/4 will be more resilient. It's sort of like it polarizes the outcomes. The 3/2 has a better high end and a worse low end, and the 2/4 is kind of towards the middle, which sometimes is exactly what your aggressive deck wants, but sometimes it is a hindrance because your guy costs 3 and has 2 attack. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. Personally, I view high attack as they're aggressive in context, whereas high defense are aggressive out of context usually. If that makes sense.
That's a pretty good way to put it. I like that.
Let's see here. You are going to get annoying very quickly, so let's just nip that in the bud, shall we?
Me?
Yep.
Come on. Oh.
Let's do that, and let's do that.
No! The hidden removal!
Yep.
This is one that I think a lot of people wouldn't have noticed as a removal effect, but
I love Etherealize. No, this is straight up removal for me.
Enjoy that card.
Yeah, I mean this thing. Every time I look at it, it's amazing because it also removes any effects that you put on, which is actually a very heavy theme within set 3.
It also handles anything with a death trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't die, which is an important part of diamond removal. We wanted to make sure that was covered in the spectrum of things that removal effects did. It also kills constants.
Be careful on your time. You need to click.
Oh. Jeez, holy.
You're in trouble.
I'm not very good at
I actually have a question from chat, if you have a second here.
Sure, go.
Baudry from chat decided to ask about battle hoppers. Is there a reason why you decided to make them colorless as opposed to wild or blood, consistent with their the effects that are played to create them?
It has a lot to do with some ways that the engine works and how it does not like cards that have the same name as other cards.
There you go.
That's about all I really understand of it.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, but it's not going to do anything.
It's more tech limitation than flavor.
I don't know.
Of
I wouldn't say limitation so much as I wouldn't say limitation so much as like all those guys back, just these guys in. Got chumped.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say it's more. The problem isn't worth solving. Like having them be blood or wild is some amount better, but there's also some charm to having them be the same one, because imagine you have a bounce effect that puts the card back in your hand, and you have only have thing.
Do that.
That's what it was. It was having to track the source to pull 2 different cards. I'm sorry, I should just not be answering this question. My bad.
No, that's fine.
I'm just creating more confusion.
No, it's interesting though, because I guess here's something which you might be able to comment on. Obviously, since you are designing a video game, you have tech limitations, and you have those in a physical space as well to some extent. I mean, people don't always think about that, but you are limited by what's easy to do, what's convenient for players. In some ways, Hex is freeing. You get a lot more room to do all sorts of crazy things that you wouldn't be able, or would be tedious to do in a physical environment. But at the same time, you have these sort of hidden things where it's like, oh, the client doesn't like dual names, and that has gameplay implications to it, right? The fact that these battle hoppers are colorless, shardless, they allow you to block things that they wouldn't be able to block before. So
this is what I got.
Oh, ouch. Oh man. That's lethal, isn't it? 2, 4, 6, yeah. Good play, my friend.
I've got 43 seconds, so so we're gonna see how tight we can play on this.
Yeah, I guess so.
My deck's fast, but it's not that fast.
Wow.
It's probably more a dexterity limitation at this point than anything.
Can't click fast enough.
Yeah.
Geez, was there a question in there somewhere? I feel like there might have been, but I lost it.
You were asking about the tech limitations and how they introduce additional gameplay. The tech limitations that are there in a digital TCG relative to the advantages that we get by not having to. For example, we don't care how many times cards shuffle your deck.
Exactly.
No one has to physically do it, and we actually don't even shuffle your decks because we want to keep certain orders in place for prophecy effects.
Yeah.
Insert a card, which was a Matt Dunn joint.
I thought that was really cool. I
also thought that was really cool.
It changes how you think about your deck as a unit in the game.
Yeah, and it also lets us do different mechanics we couldn't do, and cards in the top 10. We actually have a bunch of cool stuff. Doesn't necessarily deal with it directly, but it solves minor problems that you only find when you start playing with it, or it works with one other card. And sometimes it just comes together, and that was one of those innovations that I'm really, really glad we put in and used as our default rather than. Let me save. All right, I'm going to try and win in 43 seconds.
That would be epic.
You can do it.
Sir, I believe.
I cannot. I believe I can just hit F10 real fast. I'm probably going to skip one turn in this game.
Don't hit them during the end phase. You'll be all right.
Let us not keep this one.
Oh, I like this hand.
Ooh, this is. I wish I could screenshot these hands. They're opposites.
Don't you just love that? Mulliganing is such an interesting thing. This is so high skill, and it's hard for people to read sometimes. Is this? I guess here's a question. I don't know if it's for you, but it's one that I've thought about a lot. As designers for Hex, have you thought about how to make TCG skills more accessible to people who are newcomers to the genre? Yep. Because I feel like Mulligan is a very high skill point, which you can be very, very sad if you do it incorrectly.
Yep.
It's high impact and high skill.
So to some extent, we rely on the community to educate itself, but we also want to make sure that we have guidelines in there. So part of our tutorials that we've been, I don't know if I can talk about it. There are things coming out.
That'll help streamline the process.
Exactly. Or at least will make it less obfuscated. Holy crap. Oh yeah, that combo.
It's pretty awesome.
That's one of those that we didn't know we could do until it went into the client, and then they said this is a thing, and we're like, all right.
Yeah, okay,
That's
sure.
Kind of sweet, because Abominate's a pretty cool card, and Spiritbound Spy is one of the better cards that we want people, trying to draft highly. So
yeah, I will say that
I wasn't getting to that game anyway.
I love the recursion effects that are in set 3. There's just so much. It gives such a unique feel to the game. I will definitely say that.
I can't take much credit for that. Most of what I did on those was saying, Matt Dunn, make something different than what we have. And then he'd throw 30 designs against the wall, and we'd all go through and play with them and eventually find the one that was the best, or that we thought was the best, and pocket the other 2 or 3 for down the road to change around a little bit. And
nice.
Yeah, having guys that can throw stuff against the wall is unbelievably awesome.
So here's something that I've been thinking about a lot, because set 3 really introduces tribal. I mean, we had it to some extent in the previous sets. You've got the Shin Hair, which are awesome. You've got the humans. But I feel like, particularly if you're talking about a limited environment, you have, with this set, really ramped up those tribal dials.
That's interesting.
You don't think so?
Well, okay, so yes and no, and I didn't really frame it in the limited terms. When we set out to do it, we wanted to move away from some of the explicit tribal synergies that were present in set 1 and 2, but we wanted to still make sure that they felt like they were there and they were important. So we tried to put in a couple cycles that were lower and didn't need a ton. Like the Allegiance cycle, you don't need to have 30 Shin Hair in your deck to make it Allegiance Shin Hair, which does not exist yet. But you don't need 30 Shin Hair in your deck to make that work. You need a couple, and it scales. So we were trying to find effects that cared about it, but didn't make you move all in the same way. And so we thought it was less tribal.
Really, set 3?
Yeah, we thought it was less tribal than sets 1 and 2. But I can see when you're framing it this other way, of how they're affecting limited. I could definitely see it the other way. Which just goes to show you can always think about things in different ways, no matter how much time you've spent on them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it must be this crazy balancing act, like this massive game of Jenga where you're just very carefully putting pieces in and moving them out, and how it all falls is.
For me, the metric was I was counting the number of cards that said the race in the text box, and we had 8, I think. At low rarities, and sets 1 and 2 usually we're running 12, 15.
Interesting. See, what I view it as is less the sheer number, but how they play together. It's this whole synergy idea.
Yeah.
And so, for humans, it didn't really matter how many you picked up. Inspire's Inspire. It doesn't need other humans to work. I was talking.
Well, then Set 2 came out.
Yeah. Well, right, and then Set 2 came out, and it changed things a little bit. Humans were definitely very strong. I will grant you that. But I feel like humans, again, you don't need to go humans. Like, if you take a bunch of humans, they're not sticky. They're really good if you have a lot of them, but it doesn't hurt you if you only have a few. Whereas for Venom, if you only have a few, you're not going to have a functional deck.
Yep, that is a very salient point. I know that when we put in humans initially, they were supposed to be the foil to the all-in, like the dwarves and the shin hair, who really, really cared about having a lot of them. And we thought that was. I know that Ben put that in intentionally as a texture to the way that each tribe cared about their tribalness for that set, and the underworld troops were like, "Hey, we're very zealous. We are xenophobic. We want to just be with our guys, and that's where we're best."
Oh, interesting.
And the humans and the orcs were a little more open-ended, but they still had very distinct play patterns. And because of the shards they were in, we were able to kind of push them towards where they needed to be. And the spiders definitely have that exact same thing going on, and the necrotic to an extent with some of the deep gaze cards where they reward you explicitly for shift. So we tried to keep some of that ardent underworld theming, but the net impact of each individual when we switched from 12 or 15 to 8 cards that said it, we had to increase the impact of some of them, and so that made them more important to the archetype that you're playing. Also, just counting number of times it says that the race in the text box misses all the spider cards because they're very clearly we want a critical mass of this type of effect.
Right, sub-tribe effects.
Yep.
I guess, the whole lore is actually, and theme is something that I was intrigued to ask about, and so I'm glad you sort of touched on that. I love it when, because every little piece of digital cardboard you guys do carries so many hats. It needs to live in construct, it needs to live in limited, it needs to tell a story, it needs to build a world. It's got to do so many things. And so hearing how you guys tried to make the underworld feel xenophobic, feel like they cohere better together if you have a bunch of the bad guys, as it were, together in one deck, is actually fantastic.
Yep. That's one of those things. We try and layer in a lot of little things, and sometimes they have to get sacrificed a little bit for the play. But when people notice them, it's really, really rewarding for whoever fought for it in here.
That's great.
Ben, I don't want to give specific credit, but I know Ben and Matt were both sort of behind driving some of that flavor discussion in here. And we have a flavor department that I'm sure was in Ben's ear and in Matt's ear and about this stuff.
Of course. Can you think of any other examples that you might be able to or might want to share about ways that you have flavor impacting mechanics?
Prophecy was Prophecy was a flavor-driven design initially because when Matt sat down to work on the set, he knew he wanted something that dealt with time because the Coyote believed that everything is all at the same time. It's like the past, the present, the future is all one, and time is an illusion, I think is the phrase. So Matt wanted to make sure that they had something that dealt with time, and he started playing around with different mechanics, and the first iteration was really weird. I think I pitched some weird version as well, and we went back and forth with a couple ones that didn't land, and then eventually it was weird. We came in for the morning meeting, and we both had the exact same revelation that night of how to fix this broken, weird, contorted mechanic and make it really simple by making it prophecy. And we both came in and we saw each other and we were like, I was like, Matt, I have to tell you this. He's like, I have a great idea. And we paused and we were like, all right, I'll say first, you say second, and then we'll discuss. And then it was the same idea.
Clearly, time was an illusion. You'd already had that conversation.
Exactly.
You're right on the wavelength.
It was sort of eerie. That was when we started referring to it as the Set 3 mind meld, which then turned into the Set 4 mind meld. And anytime one of us makes the same joke or something like that, it gets thrown out.
That's really cool.
Yeah. God, I don't even remember what the other one. It was like when you play this guy, the next troop you play that you didn't have in your hand gets. I swear to God, it was that bad.
Oh wow, it was really really difficult to parse. A lot of layers of complexity going on.
Yep. And we knew it wasn't in the right spot complexity wise, but we were like, well, let's just, because we had a little schedule and we were like, on this days we're going to make sure we have an iteration out, and that was the best thing we had, so we're like, all right, we'll put it out and play with it and see how it plays. And it actually played reasonably. It was just, once people figured it out, it just took them forever. And so we went home that day thinking like, well, what do we do to make this simpler? And that was actually, I think, why we started pushing for the insert into deck rather than shuffle, so we didn't mess that up.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Because that was one of the very few things that we were trying to work around it in awkward text box. We just shifted.
Yeah, shifted where the complexity lies.
Exactly.
I guess here's a question, because I see prophecy as a really awesome effect, but also a really volatile one. Like, I am always leery as a player who wants to keep my win rate up, wants to. I have a little bit of spike in me too, so that time issue is really difficult. In a sense, it's RNG, but in another form. And so how do you balance, really powerful prophecy effects to make it worth it versus the fact that you could draw it at any time, 2 turns, 3 turns, 6 turns later?
Well, those are some of the dials we have to turn. We had a couple, I think 3. There's the floor of the card, which is if we put it on for example, Night Sky Stargazer. A 4-cost 3/3 is almost a good card and definitely playable on its own. And then when you add this power to it, you feel like less. So 90% of the card is from the body and 10% is from the power. So if you don't get your jackpot on the 10%, you're like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Other cards we want to push to have a very exciting output and make you pay for it. So when we kind of keep track of where those are, and then each individual player can gravitate towards the designs that they like. If they want the big splashy dream like Thunderfield Elder onto your, I gotta wrap it up.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, exactly. Wakuna, it's a hoop card.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wakuna was a favorite of mine as well. Martyr's my favorite card. You'll see on Monday. I'm giving this over to who am I giving to? Jacob.
All right. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. And thank you guys, by the way, in the stream for being here. I know I'm kind of focused on the interviews and the questions and the like, but it means a ton to me that you guys are here and having some fun. So thank you so much. You missed it all. No, not quite. We've been switching through, and don't worry if you guys are popping in and you didn't quite catch it all. I will make sure I'm recording this. We'll have the stream, and I will be putting this up on YouTube for you all to check out. So yeah, we are not done yet, not by a long shot. Yeah, and for guys who are asking questions in chat, we will take some questions, if they're good ones, from the community, from people who are asking in chat. The question is, do you have a useful question? That's a lot of questions. What I'm trying to say is, live in the now, people. Ask about stuff that... oh, whoops. Yes, please. Ask about questions that are about stuff that's out now, past designs, that sort of thing. That's a lot better than trying to come up with other designs. Oh, whoops! Can you do you mind? I'm going to call you back. I accidentally accepted your call instead of adding you to the previous one where I have all my screens set up. So I'm going to very quickly.
Maybe they found out he's playing me.
I'm going to very quickly close this call and then add you to the other
Nathan, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Take this off? No, it's not.
Is it going out different on the... What is the problem?
Is it?
Hello.
He needs to move it. You put your thing as showing up properly, and then he will adjust.
Okay.
Can you hear me,
Nathan,
Jacob?
Me?
Can you hear me?
I'm not getting any.
Okay.
From.
I'm hearing you. Let me try and redo this call. 1 second.
Hello.
Do you plug in this headset?
I had it all working this morning.
Oh dear. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm adding you to a different call.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Everybody's here.
Well, I added him to a separate call.
Yeah, I'm reading you now, Nathan.
You are fantastic. Now, the only thing we need is for you to click that video button, and I think we're mostly set up.
Is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
All right. Fantastic.
There he is.
Sweet. Okay, I think everything is set up now. The only thing I need to do is change that name tag. So while I do this, why don't you do me a favor and introduce yourself and tell us about all the crazy things you do with your day.
All right. My name is Jacob Janoska. I'm a game designer on Hex, and my area of expertise is the design of the PvE experience, and most of my day is spent creating a in-house roadmap for everything that's going to happen in the PvE experience. So I obviously can't get too much into specifics, but that's the gist of what I'm doing.
Sweet.
And I am one of 2 very recent hires, and I'm coming to Hex from a very varied background. All right, I'll keep this baby. I don't know if you have any questions.
Oh,
any
sure.
Specific questions for me, like a new hire's perspective, or
Yeah, actually, that's
probably okay.
fantastic. Yeah, tell us what it's like to be a new hire at Hex End. Somebody's.
It's actually it's the first office environment that I've ever worked in, so I don't have a ton to compare it to in that. But it seems, it's a little on the wild and zany side, I guess. I feel that like a lot of what goes on here is reflected in the product. Like there's definitely a little bit of like madness and whimsy, that they do a really great job of getting across. Speaking of madness and whimsy, I hope that you enjoy this delicious brew that I have that I've concocted here today. This little
oh my
see winter moon something.
A little bit of Ruby, bring out the chili.
Yeah, little spice for this bowl right here. But yeah, I think one of the driving forces for bringing me on in the capacity that I am, in like kind of trying to, do this roadmap / narrative for the PvE experiences. I have experience outside of the game design industry in kind of narrative storytelling, and I did a bunch of film work when I was living on the Pacific Northwest up in Portland, Oregon. And I'm just able to bring like a bit of that narrative storytelling, like
That's great.
And then to hopefully impact that on the game design side, to just say like how can we do some storytelling like with the cards? How can we do some storytelling with the champions? How can we start moving towards introducing people to the far-flung reaches of this really amazing universe that Hex encompasses.
No, yeah, that's fascinating. And my background is I spent a lot of time in academics, and I spent many years studying anthropology. So I love narratives and sort of different cultures, and you know, telling that through story. That's really awesome.
Yeah, we've all got stories. It's just trying to figure out how to get them out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So speaking of stories, why don't you share with us what kind of player you are? We've been asking everybody if they are a Johnny, somebody who wins with style, a Timmy, somebody who just likes to win big, big troops, big effects, splashy, or a Spike, just win.
Well, I think you can kind of tell by what I've got going on here, the sort of player that I am. Like I like to have a really good time when I play games, and part of what I do to have a really good time is to inject a lot of lunacy in what I'm doing. Like I like to be wild and fun and creative, and I like to attack the game from an hopefully unexpected angle, and one of my favorite archetypes to draft in this environment. I had a little glitch there talking. Is the kind of what you're seeing here, but the deck that I'm the biggest fan of is like quintuple shard call, 5 shard Winter Moon with like 14 shards or 13 shards in the main, and I guess that then therefore I'm not typically as overall concerned with victory as I am with style, because even when that particular deck like really gets humming, I've taken it to the finals a few times and lost to deck death. It gets humming along a little too well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. I love Winter Moon. There's so many crazy things you can do with that champion. It's spectacular.
She's my lady love, that's for sure. All right, I'm a little, think.
So
stymied here. What are we gonna do? Like, unfortunately, I think we have to. Let's see. I think we have to do this. What are we gonna take here? Well, I don't love to do it, but sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the greater good.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, interesting place to be in.
Yeah, it wasn't the only option. I think it was the best option, though. The trials and tribulations as a TCG player. I have a hand that just is not going to operate on. Oh no, that's brutal. On 4 shards.
Let's try this.
I mean, let's see if we can get there with a little bit of that old wild magic right here. At least slow the bleeding.
Might have some solutions.
And maybe turn things around. Come on. Boom. Ooh. Sometimes kids hears you.
Oh no, flyers. That's not cool.
She answers your prayers. So, yeah, I came here I was working in the film industry in Portland, Oregon. Before that, I was actually a park ranger for like 8 years, also in the Pacific Northwest.
Very cool.
And, doing a lot of writing, and I was kind of, really? Is that so?
That is so.
Well, hopefully I'm just taking a deuce here and not getting tainted. Okay, I can live with that, because what we're going
to do... Is this? I suspect I have some predatory prey coming down.
Well, that I don't want you to talk me into that, but it does seem like a good option. But I have a veritable smorgasbord of of options right here.
All I can say is he thoroughly crushed me in round 1.
Ouch.
Thoroughly.
You put up a fight in in game 1.
That is painful.
Yeah, it was. Well, game 2 was pretty rough on you for sure.
Yeah, to say the least.
But you said you screwed up and you kept a hand you probably shouldn't have. Isn't that right?
Yeah, one shard hand with two 4 costs.
Yeah. Now, was that an accident or was that an
No,
error?
that was an actual misclick.
Okay. So it wasn't just because I've we've all been greedy. Like,
Oh yeah.
what are you trying to do here? What is this?
What am I doing? I know. What am I doing?
Just gonna shrink? You just trying to grow that guy or something?
Maybe.
I mean, YOLO, right?
All right. Yeah. YOLO.
Oh, a little tricks.
Uh
Look out.
huh.
Unfortunately,
Oh dear. Do you have?
I'm gonna come out behind in that exchange, I think. But
Okay.
now we're gonna start. Get a little wascally here. And get
Oh no.
a little bit.
Oh
Oops.
yes.
That rabbit.
I do.
That frickin' rabbit.
yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So now all I have to do is think like, how do I choose which creature to just wreck Dinotropia with here? Do I wait for something embarrassing, or do I do I get this profane ritualist? Not sure what to do. Yeah. So yeah, you can. I think the personality of my playstyle is kind of coming out in this random sort of
No, this is pretty
troops
awesome.
I'm laying out there. So
So yeah, Jacob. You were just saying you have a background in sort of film and writing.
Yeah.
Would you say you spend more time designing narratives, or do you actually work on cards at all? What's your role there at Hex?
right now I'm definitely more on the not just there's a lot of this structuring of narrative. There's a lot of this development of stories and specifically on my end, not quite as much of the I'm just going to get in there and design a ton of cards.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also this sort of I talked about a little bit, this desire to bring different disparate. I got a decision to make here. Sorry for a second.
No, that's fine.
Different elements of the world and the game together to create this kind of overarching story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, does that answer the specifics of that question?
Yeah, probably for the most part. I mean,
No, definitely.
yeah,
What's that?
Definitely answered the question.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, and then I can go into it a little bit more. So the other thing that is going on is it's not just the narrative development, but the gameplay development in the PvE experience, because it's not anything that we've done before. There's a lot of gameplay design and gameplay development that's going into it as well. So there's just this kind of the team here is very, very passionate about making this entire experience and this really fun kind of living, breathing world. And so we're trying to tie everything, we talk about what makes Hex, what makes Hex stand out from other TCGs, what makes the universe special, what makes the gameplay special, and how do we capture all those things in what we're doing and moving forward. So I have to kind of much like this spicy little winter moon stew here, I have to kind of brew all that stuff together and make sure it comes across.
Carnosaurus, why?
Oh, little battle.
No.
A traitor.
Okay,
Okay,
look at
so-
what you have done.
Okay, now I think this guy's just he's gonna do a little work for us right here. Crushing neighbor. I know this profane ritualist is getting bigger and bigger, but Um, yeah, I am.
Oh, why not? Double or nothing.
Okay,
So,
I was afraid that was going to be a periphagy or something.
yes, jeez, I wish.
So,
Not today.
I mean, we're having a lot of fun with the banter and the gameplay, but yeah, is there any other questions you have? Or
Absolutely, yeah. No, I've got a couple. Again, as always, this sort of disclaimer. We came up with a bunch of questions. We got questions from the forums. If there's ever anything that you don't feel like you can ask or should be passed along to somebody else, don't hesitate to let me know.
Sure.
So I guess the first question I have here for you is, can you talk about and maybe this is from a narrative perspective, the design of PvE cards and how they differ from PvP? You do a lot about putting story in. Is this like text in terms of like, oh, I'm sitting here reading a campaign? Is this like text boxes on a PvE campaign? Or is this, we're looking at cards, we're writing flavor text, we're designing worlds through the game and the gameplay? Is like what range are we looking at from narrative from you?
Well, I think there's so there's definitely a desire to try and tell a story but that ultimately does come second to gameplay and having like a really fun game experience. So the text boxes aren't going to be like cluttered with flavor text or anything like that. If that's what I think that's kind of the question that you're getting at. So it's less about like literally putting narrative on cards. It's less about like I'm going to like actually use this card to like tell, like literally have a story on this card, and more about something along the lines of like, who is this Sky Dancer? And rather than like use, oh man, what a blowout. Rather than use like specific examples from the game, I'll just use specific examples from our game. So like we'd be like, okay, we have this really cool card, Sky Dancer, we want to incorporate him into the campaign. So what does he mean to Hex? Like, why is he, why is he important to the campaign? What is he doing here? What is he going to bring to this? Like, why is he going to be a compelling character? Like, why are players going to get excited about him? And how do we convey that between like his attack and his defense and his troop type and like the art and everything? Like that is all just coming together to hopefully tell a more cohesive story.
Interesting.
So yeah, not just something as simple as like, oh, Smashadon's going to say, I'm going to smash you from one end of the Feral Root Woods to the other, like so that people know about the Feral Root Woods. It's more like, no, it's like, what are they saying about the environment in gameplay and, with their raw stats? Because that's the stuff that's jumping out first at the player.
Can you walk me through like a story on a card? Like it could be an existing card that we have here, something like how is this craft? Because this is intriguing to me. This is not something I've ever really thought about. I mean, I like theme and mechanics and stuff, but this is new. This is a whole new world. I want to learn.
Okay, so wait, let's look at this. Let's look at this Carnosaur, right? I mean, like, he's a dinosaur, right? So somehow he survived the Hex strike. Now, my understanding is that is a topic that people are clamoring for more information about. Man,
Indeed.
Am I just done here? What is going on? So let me do this math before I like just really sink my teeth into this story, because I have like 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Are you trying to distract me? Do I have lethal? Is that what's going on right now? I don't want this to be like this like noob team member at Hex misses lethal on board, because I feel that that's what's going on here.
No, never.
Like you're laughing, but I caught like a little whiff of nervousness in that laugh. So it's the 8, 9, 10. I can do basic math. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Well,
13,
that's impressive, because I can't always do
15, 16, 17, 18.
Never do basic math.
Minus 2. See, like.
Am I?
Using non-combat damage. That's 16. All right.
Is it?
So attack here, and then I'm gonna see what happens.
Okay.
And,
Now, he forces me to do a block I'm not particularly fond of, but I am still alive.
okay,
Which
yeah.
means I could draw into something to keep me in the game.
But I don't die in the crackback.
No, you don't, unfortunately. Oh, yes!
Oh,
Sweet
man.
dreams are made of these.
I fell into a trap that I've fallen into before where I have like a huge crush guy on the board, and I'm like, okay, so the most they can do is soak up 2 points of damage.
Uh-huh.
Without thinking like, oh, he could just block this guy without crush.
Okay, wait, does this actually keep me alive? It might. No, I don't think it does.
Wait, are you? I don't know. Well, I'm gonna lose this guy, right?
You are, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna lose this guy.
No, this does keep me alive.
We'll see. We're gonna draw. What are we gonna rip here? Predatory prey? Is that like fantastic? It's fantastic. That's what it's gonna be. Predatory prey.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well. I feel like this guy is more. he's more impactful to the conversation we're having than he is to the actual game. So what
Okay.
happens here? Now, I think I lose. This guy. Man, this is a good game.
Well, thank you.
So
I
you
really.
can just eat the Smashodon. You
Mhm.
can block the Carnosaurus. These guys both get bigger, and I totally die. But I can't. Let's see. 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I can get you to 1, right? Man,
Unless you have a buff in hand.
what a dagger. Oh, I should have played it first. Yeah, that's so.
Oh,
Yeah, so
interesting.
there could.
Okay.
Like, let me
Do that.
let me think about like weaving a tale about an individual card. This guy. This is basically.
Ageless troubadour. All right.
Sure.
I'll sit back. Lend us. We'll lend you our ears. Tell us a story.
So yeah, I think like let's say we wanted to do a dinosaur campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So we would consider all that stuff, like what does the community think about this? What are the burning questions that they want answered, and what's going to be exciting for them within that world? So people would want to see Carnosaurus. They would want to see Crocosaur. They would want to see their favorite dinosaurs, and they would want to learn more about them. So they would want, you wouldn't expect that if we launched this dinosaur-based PvE that there were not going to be any dinosaur and fights. Like if you use the Frostring Arena, for example, like you would expect to encounter a dinosaur champion, right? You would want to see how that theme developed along the lines that you're used to those kind of narrative themes rolling out in role-playing games. So
Okay.
that sort of thing. Is that?
Yeah. No, that's exactly.
I feel like that's good. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot healthier to use examples from cards that are like in sets that already exist rather than have me like through some slip of the tongue like.
Exactly. That's why I wanted you to tell a story about something we could see or a card from a previous set. As I recognize there's a time and a place for those kind of big splashy reveals.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is like I always see there's always people who are like, oh, I want to know this thing that's coming up that nobody else knows. But I mean, I think that there's got to be people out there too that are not making themselves heard, that are just like, I don't want any spoilers. I'm a non-spoiler guy.
You want your experience to be fresh and clean and new.
And it's all exciting for me. Like it's always like I'm attracted to the kind of the game itself, but then also like anytime I'm consuming media, whether it's like a new book or a new game or a movie or something like that, I really enjoy the puzzle solving aspects of it. Like, what were they thinking when they meant this story? Like, what are they trying to tell me? And like, what are they setting me up for down the road a little bit? What's the big reveal going to be, or are they going to trick me because there's not going to be a big reveal? Like
my girlfriend and I do a game where we will watch TV and be like, okay, this is going to happen, and we'll make predictions about the story. And I have to say, one of the most rewarding experiences as somebody who consumes media, and this is games, this is movies, this is books. You know, I lived in a library when I was a kid. I want two things out of my stories. I want something that speaks to the human condition in some way. You know, it has to be real in that sense, and that can be either, you know, imparting some kind of wisdom, or it can be, oh man, that was exciting, like it makes me excited as a human being, right? That sort of thing. And then also surprise, the aspect of having everything, you know, it's the shock and awe moment. You're on stage, you know, the curtain goes up, the magician does a trick, and then it's like, oh man, everything came together, the narrative lines all fit. Like, surprise is something I personally, as a media consumer, appreciate very, very heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that satisfaction of like, this person is a master storyteller. They tricked me. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm a smart person. I'm a gamesman. I pay attention to everything. I'm trying to see all the angles, and this guy still tricked me. That's incredible. There's one that totally blew my mind. Spike Lee, The Inside Man, right? The movie. Oh, spoiler alerts. Okay, if you haven't seen Spike Lee, The Inside Man, and you're planning on seeing it, tune out for like 2 minutes, because I'm going to spoil this baby for you right here. But the movie starts with, you know, the guy is still in the bank. But then the movie is so good that by the end of it, you're like, oh my, he was in the bank the whole time. I didn't even know, like, they lose you in the storytelling, because the storytelling is so excellent. And they do such a good job of, like, building these characters and building this world that you just get lost in it. You're like, I love this guy so much, and he's just never going to make it out of here. You know, like, he's never going to get out. And you're like, that was never his plan. You know, like, but the best part is, like, you know, that's the way the movie starts, but they get you to forget. Like, that kind of stuff is just like pitch perfect. Like, that's just beautiful.
No, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
See if we can get you
Yes,
another.
that movie is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I there's, you know, I appreciate a Spike Lee joint, and that one in particular.
Yep.
Let's see if we can find you another question.
Get on.
Let's see. And so, if you find any that are from the community, feel free to shout them out as well. Because no, that's so.
Surprisingly enough, people are just listening.
Just listening. Yeah, well,
they're having so much fun listening. They don't even have time to write questions.
Proof of a master storyteller right there.
All right.
So I guess here's a question, because you know you're a newcomer. What have you worked on? So I know what kind of questions I can ask. You know, if it's all future stuff that sort of shapes the kinds of things that I might lead our discussion down. Have you worked on any of the older stuff? Arena, for example, is sort of a PvE experience we as players have had experience with.
So I would have come in. I don't know. I don't think I'm. So I would have come in. The work on set 3 on Armies of Myth would have already been completed.
Okay. Wow.
The time that I came on.
Okay.
Just because of the way that timelines work.
Right.
So I don't know how much of this, like, I'm just kind of looking for a little bit of direction. I don't know how much of, like, this stuff is like insider information, like if it gives out inside timelines and stuff like that. But I'll just say that much. So now I can't say like when I got hired or anything like that. But
that's fine.
Yeah. So I've really the bulk of my contributions have been like the sizable bulk of my contributions have been to the PvE experience.
Interesting.
So broad questions about like, yeah.
Well, here's one about I guess narrative and motivations, because you know I'm often a very character-driven story consumer. I guess if that makes sense. I'm somebody who appreciates characters that feel. I don't know if relatable is the right term, but you want them to have a human side to them. You want them to feel like they could live and breathe and be a being. You know, if you're talking about fantasy, it doesn't have to be quite focused on the anthropomorphic to the same degree, but you want it to feel cohesive. Mm-hmm. And so my question for you is, you know, how do you meet narrative and character related concerns within the frame of a video game, which has very specific kinds of requirements? You want a good race and a bad race, and these are kind of very polarizing stories we have human beings tell about other people, right? But you know, if you start actually looking at, well, history and talking to people, you realize that good and evil aren't things that exist within human beings quite in the same way as we tell stories about them. So how do I don't know how to explain my question. I'm rambling now because I'm doing this off the fly.
Yeah.
Did you see kind of where I'm going?
I feel like there's a core to that. Like we can dust around the outside a little bit and get to like what you're getting at there. Mm-hmm. So it's more like how do you take maybe a fantastic setting and inject like some sort of realism there? Like how do you get relatability? I think that sometimes like what you have to do is you take a story like probably many people's go-to like epic fantasy story like Lord of the Rings, where you have this you have these characters that are just like larger than life, like totally like almost godlike beings like Gandalf and even to a lesser extent Aragorn, who's just like greatest swordsman in the history of time. And then you ground that with like, you know, the hobbits who are these, you know, like sort of earthy, relatable, like, you know, believable characters. Like they're you know, like they just like a lot of us, they're like, I just don't particularly want to get out of bed today. Like, enjoy snacks. Like,
yeah, snacks are awesome.
We all have had that you know, that second breakfast. We've all been there. We've all you know, struggled to not eat that like snack size bag of Doritos, or in some cases the family size.
In there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I personally, I have opened an entire family size bag and eaten them and just been like, I know I'm gonna finish these. I know I'm gonna eat the whole thing, so I just take it. I have to throw it in the garbage. The whole thing. I can't even keep it in a cupboard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, exactly.
I have then gone back to the garbage at a later time, like taken the bag out and had to like actually open it and sprinkle the chips in the garbage and mix it in with the garbage so that I wouldn't eat.
Wouldn't go back and get them.
Just, I don't know how I got on my garbage picking from hobbits, but everything is interconnected, I guess.
Well, I feel I talking about unconventional and sort of strange career directions. I spent about a year as a taste tester. So yeah, a lot of I guess on the industrial side of things. So you actually eat stuff and then say you have to rate it on a scale of this is, you know, a salty 3 or a sweet 4.
Salty 3.
Yeah, out of a scale. And so anytime you can get me onto a food tangent, I'm interested. I'll spend a lot of time in anthropology looking at meal-related interactions between people.
So what do you think? Like, if you let's just say that you're on Entrath for the day, and you're like, I have experience as a professional industrial food taster. Where are you going to go for your first meal?
Oh, Entrath. See, that's the thing. You know, we know so little about it. We got this little spinning globe. We know that there are, you know, the forges of the dwarves, and I bet you they would make a really kind of bang up burrito. I don't know why I think this. It's like,
Wait, who's making burritos?
Burrito?
yeah, the dwarves.
Dwarven burrito.
Dwarven burritos. You know, they're smiths, and if you're going to, you know, you've got to carefully fold and wrap it just like you would fold and wrap steel. You've got to find, you know, a lot of spicy. You've got the molten,
like a Ulrig's Black John underground pepper. Only grows like in the lava beds or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I see that. Okay. Yeah. So you're gonna go with dwarves. What about and
I think
then
so.
let me look at your. So it's Celandine. What about you? I've thought about it.
I think
Because it's obvious by Dinotropia's immediate that he is like he's thinking about this. He plays a game. He's just like, I wonder what kind of burrito that night Sky Stargate. Because Kylos live on the Howling Plains.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have not thought of that one specifically,
okay.
but I think I'm gonna have to go with an answer from chat. I'm gonna go specifically straight to the shiitake chef.
The shiitake chef. So is the shiitake chef like, what is his specialty? Anybody?
What is his
It's crickets.
specialty?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like, is it like a portobello mushroom sandwich with shiitake
Well-
mushroom?
Oh,
Like,
so that's
maybe a miso soup.
But
I don't
I
know.
think that's like chopping up your brethren. I think
Cannibals.
I think there would be some like fundamental problems with that. I'm gonna hack up all my brethren and I'm gonna feed them to other brethren.
Yeah.
I would think that they're more of the like meat eaters.
Yeah.
They're going to be like this crazy. I'm gonna go out and hunt mushrooms.
Yeah.
Trying to
Carnivorous
just, like,
mushrooms.
Take down the dinosaurs. Take down
That's
random,
fighting words.
The random creatures that are roaming the lands, and since dinosaurs are really the only
Now there's
ones
something
I can
that
think
you
of
might,
that would go roaming the land.
there's something you might want to dabble in if you were like having a couple meals. Like, let's say you were like taking it's like you go to Portland and you got to go to like the brew pub and you got to go get like you got to go to Montage and get mac and cheese and have that experience. But if you're on Entraff, maybe you want to have like a dinosaur burger, something like that. Something you can't get anywhere else.
I feel like I have to raise an objection to this line of questioning.
So I felt like it might be a little tender, but now what to do? How many more turns?
So,
can I
but my question would Winston be a delicacy?
No. If you don't know, Winston is my little avatar / mascot that we have. We have a bunch of animations and stuff we build into the stream to keep things entertaining. They want to eat him.
So you have like a whole like a dinosaur posse that you roll with then.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
right.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of feel. Should we bring it back to Hex a little bit? Is there anything else brewing? Any other questions anybody has?
Absolutely. So obviously you've got to keep things on the down low. But is there something from the campaign that you're really excited to share with the community? Feel free to talk about in broad terms. Just like, oh man, I'm loving what we're doing with the dwarves. I'm loving, whatever you can speak to. Is there something that you think people are gonna be really excited for that you personally are excited for?
So I'm not thinking so much. So like I have a bunch of things, but I'm thinking like how to tread is more
Exactly.
consideration.
That's why it's one of those borderline questions. Again, feel free to say, yeah.
Yeah. Let me think about that a little bit and just and try and see if there is a way that I can formulate an answer that is because I also if I'm not going to say no, I don't want to answer this, then I don't want to give you like some unsatisfying non-answer either.
Fair
like
enough.
If I can do it, I want to do it right. So let me just play a little bit here and think about that.
Yeah, I respect that.
Yeah, and then if you think of anything else, then that's juicy too.
Oh, sure. No, like, so we got a little bit sidetracked, but one of the sort of side things, and if you need some time and it would interfere with your current thinking, we can table this as well. But, can we pick a card on the table and kind of share how you would tell that story? Tell the story of the Gem Soul Feeder. Tell the story of the Deadeye Slicer. We were doing that a little bit with Carnosaurus before we had an untimely end.
Well, now let's see. Merry Minstrels, I think, would maybe be kind of a cool thing that would just give you a little bit of insight but not like give you any spoilers, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you would look at Merry Minstrels, and then you would think about maybe we're gonna like we talked about dinosaurs. Like, let's say we want to explore another race. Let's say, since I have 2 elves in play, that we want to think about like what do elves mean in the Hex universe? Like, what do they mean on Entrath, and like what sort of role do they fill? And I think that with these guys, we would just look at these 2 and we'd be like, okay, well, we have the Tree Guard. So obviously we've had the Tree Guard, we've had the Sky Guard, we've had these kind of like protectors of a realm, and then we have these Merry Minstrels. So right here, the vibe that we're picking up is this very much this sort of like, I feel like it's less of a it's not like the place that these guys exist would not be like primal jungle. It wouldn't be like, it obviously wouldn't be like sub-Saharan Africa. It wouldn't be the rainforests. It wouldn't be like Japanese temperate rainforest. It would be more like there's this kind of Shakespearean slant to it. So you're looking for like Nottingham. So maybe you think about, what does that mean? What are stories there, and what would the stories there be like in our universe? Like, is there elven Robin Hood? Like what like that sort of thing. Like that's kind of, I think, where crafting would go. That's pretty exciting and cool.
I can see that.
Like, just kind of like what, and not just like what stands out on the board, but what stands out to the players. Like, what are they really attached to, and what are they going to expect from that sort of universe?
I have a question for you. As the storyteller, how closely, or if at all, do you work with the artists who are doing any of the art for the cards to try and use the art to also shape the story that you're trying to tell, or taking a piece of art that they've already done and being able to tell a story around that piece of art? Like, how much do you do that?
I mean, that's what's so amazing about the team here, is that everybody's really got like has a lot of passion for storytelling, and like it doesn't, I mean, like as Ben said earlier, like we have a bunch of specialists, like everybody on our team is like super good at one thing, but at the same time there's this layer of interest that spreads across the whole project. So Tyler and his incredible art team, while they are obviously like that's their specialty and they're incredible at it, like you look at some of the art and it's just mind-blowing, and some of the ways that their talents and skills will be used in the adventure zones, I think will really blow people away, and there'll be a lot of excitement over like just like some of the directions that we stretch, like when Ben again talked about the way that spiders were developed, and how he's like, oh, we have this idea, we're going to put eggs in the deck, and then Tyler's like, oh yeah, and they're going to come out and they're going to explode, and we're going to do this animation. Like,
yeah,
the way
it's fantastic.
The way that stuff is the way that stuff is built on even more is I think will be very interesting to people.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I can tell you got to tread, right around the edges.
Tread lightly.
Yeah.
Like I think the PvE experience will be, will satisfy people in a lot of ways as far as that's concerned. And then they're a little on the, I don't have as much direct interaction with the art department. My interaction is more with the lore department.
So, I do a lot of reading and I do a lot of consuming of media, but I don't know what it's like quite to be on the other side of that equation. What is it like to create or work within the confines of lore, if that makes sense? You know, because you've got this. You're trying to do world building. You know, how do you build a world?
Hmm. Well, the place that I had to start for sure was like coming in and sort of picking up where like just kind of like figuring out how I fit into things. So
Mm-hmm.
I just spent a ton of time reading up on like the what the world is and what other people have built, like, and just kind of understanding how I can contribute to that. Like, not so much like coming in and like, this is a story that we're going to tell, blah blah blah, but like more like what is the top level vision and how can we work to make that happen? Like definitely more that sort of thing.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's any collaborative effort, right? Requires interfacing with all sorts of people's ideas, and like it's not so much the lone author sitting there penning out the masterpiece. It's
right.
You know, it's all of it.
Yeah.
That board state is looking really grim.
Yeah. Yeah. You're at a lot though, but I don't know if I can. Oops. I don't know if I can do enough this game and then have time to finish another game.
Yeah, that's true. You are looking very awkward on the time there.
Yeah.
Of course, you've also completely prevented me from attacking in. So
yeah, I missed a couple attacks myself. Right. Let's jam this guy.
Those spiders. No, don't do it. No.
Oops, that was probably a mistake. Well, there's always next turn, right?
Here they come.
Look at this.
That's not pleasant. Friends. They just want to give you a hug.
All right.
They love you.
So yeah, I think one thing that we haven't talked about at all that is I guess that part of what really attracted me to the game and got me super excited is just like the history of game playing that I have and my interest in TCGs and kind of this like I was it was something that I, like, you know, pretty much my whole life I've been interested in games and a player of games and like with family and friends and everything like that. And I just went down, I never thought of it like I just wasn't in my head as like something that I could ever do professionally. I think I grew up more in the world where that just wasn't necessarily seen as like a job that people had. And then coming like going into like state parks and being a park ranger again was just kind of like, well, I didn't really have any plans to end up in this area, but I was always a creator and always a game player and always a writer. And that just kind of took me naturally into dialogue and narrative. And then when this opportunity came up, I just happened to be in the perfect place to take advantage of it. So that just worked out very, very well for me.
That's awesome. So actually, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and you as a gamer? Like, what kind of games do you like to play? What's your background as somebody who enjoys geeky culture and the gaming genre?
The way that I got started in games would have been like family. We always played I think somewhat atypical was the fact that we always played card games.
Okay.
We played a ton of this game called Sheep's Head. That's like this traditional German card game, and that was like that. So I just got started on cards like very early. It's a little bit along the lines of something like, it's not quite hearts, not quite spades, but it is a trick-taking game, and it's a really highly complicated, very difficult game that has a lot of decision-making and tracking, and all the cards are worth different point values, and it's really crazy. And that's, I think, how I got to start in like being really interested in games that are very difficult to master. And then that led me into TCG. Oh, really? Oh, wow. That is brutal.
Of course, I had to decide whether I
so
wanted
high.
the
Flying so high.
keep the flyer or not.
Yeah, that was a decision point, because it's half the clock, right?
Yep.
But yeah, so that developed into following TCGs, and then there was a definite reaction from the office when when the stream caught up to. It's like, but and then from there, just that, I just kind of like ended up working in a lot of gaming stores. Like my very first, like one of my first jobs was working in a gaming store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that had a huge community, like a huge TCG community, and just like that community and those people were really into gaming, and that introduced me to a bunch of like folks in Madison, Wisconsin, who were just like consummate gamers, and that just
So you've been around Wisconsin way. I'm located in Wisconsin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Moved up here actually originally from Virginia for higher education.
Cool. Yeah, I have a lot of Wisconsin pride. I am a lover of the Midwest, but I'm also a huge fan of California. But I do really love Wisconsin.
That's awesome.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is not looking good.
Well, I mean, so what? Right now it's head to head, right? It's 6 turns to 6 turns, and you're up on me by a turn.
You just keep making spiders, though, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
If you ever get any one of those good things back out of that deck, because, you know...
Yeah. Well, I think that probably the most important part is the fact that I had, like, pretty much had the kill with no time, but now I'm, like...
Now you're in trouble at the time.
Yeah, I don't know. Ooh, all right. Well, that is not exactly what you want to see.
Uh-oh.
If you're me.
Okay.
Oh, wait, is that gonna... Let's see.
What are you gonna do?
Oh, man.
Evil things, I can tell.
Let's see if we can get a spider here.
No, you don't
So yeah,
spiders.
that was it. And I still, to this day, I play a ton of... Oh, that's bad. I play a ton of games, board games, card games. I really like puzzles. I switch back and forth on various puzzles. Like sometimes I'll do crossword puzzles. Sometimes I'll drift into math games and math puzzles. I have a Rubik's Cube on my desk. Like I'm really into just that sort of goofy stuff. Got a little something for you.
Oh no!
Don't know if you're familiar with him, but yeah, he's got a little song to sing.
Gotta make me cry.
Little song.
Oh no! All right, well,
Oh,
at least we
still,
can.
I just don't think I can do it in 49 seconds. It's a good strategy, though. It's an excellent strategy.
That's right. Get them talking about interesting things and reap victory.
Yeah.
Confuse them with the question.
And all my life.
Oh, Smashadon, no!
Well,
Oh, and the rot
Smash
root.
Down, yes.
yeah.
Smash it down, yes.
All right.
We got all that good stuff packed into that deck.
Yeah, but you know,
That was a crazy good deck.
Yeah, it is very, very strong. I
it's
think
got some fun stuff in it.
this might be relevant. Let's do that.
Well,
I would have won my last game had I been paying attention to the number of spiders I had in this deck. I decked him out in response to his to his kill shot. Was like, no, that's not good.
all right.
Interesting. You've got to have some kind of buff
Yeah.
there.
I sure do.
Yeah.
I won't beat around the bush here.
Oh, that's awful.
I might as well. Oh shoot! I was gonna say I
GG.
might as well just let those last few seconds roll out so that serves. But yeah. Well, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit and talk with us. You know, I understand you've got sort of very specific limitations, but it's always really cool to see and hear the people behind making these things. You know, you don't always get the limelight, as it were, but you guys totally deserve it. So,
Yeah, the team is pretty amazing for sure.
yeah.
Like, yeah. I have saved my deck, and I am ready to basically concede. And I don't think I could do it fast enough. It's too bad. It would have been fun to get a full game 3, but
Yeah,
That's
you
what
had a
happens when-
really intriguing deck there with the multiple
Yeah.
multiple shard types.
like I said, this is kind of my favorite archetype. Usually, I like to have one or two fiery.
Indignations?
Oops. Yes. Yeah. So
Two
'Cause they
cast
just-
2 or 5 damage.
yeah, it just works. It's almost better than Periphagy if you're running a brew like this.
Yeah.
Because you can just that was probably my favorite deck that I ever drafted that I made to the finals and died to deck death. I had like three fieries and like 4 shard calls, and it was just like very few shards, and I just would run through my whole deck. But I was I was able to play a resource every turn because I kept putting the shard calls back in the deck, so I was able to keep using the hero power over and over and over again. And I think it was getting a little nightmarish for my opponent, but he was probably just cackling glee as I played my last fiery to kill his guy and like drew 7 cards.
That's great.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. I got to get going, but it
Yeah.
was great.
Well, Jacob, thank you
Great.
so much for stopping by.
You're welcome. All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Fun stuff.
Information overload.
Oh, yeah. Give me a second here. Got one of those qualifier entry tickets. That'll be nice for this this upcoming IQ, which is tomorrow. Oh God, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, bright and early.
Oh. No random code drop, says Bofity. Well, yes, but I think I might raffle off the 3 packs I won from the draft. That sort of thing. In fact, why don't I do that while there's some downtime and I'm doing sort of my goodbyes. Let's get a raffle going. This is going to be a keyword raffle, and that keyword is going to be ! Dev Draft. The raffle item is going to be a Set 3 booster, and we are going to be raffling off 3 of those this afternoon. So, there we go. And in fact, let me switch over to the main screen, since that'll be easier to see things. So, exclamation point, hello, that might work. Yes, okay. So now we have our normal interface.